And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Stanhope versus Sayers. Step forward, please.
Donna Stanhope is suing the parents of her son's friend, Vicky and Ray Sayers, for the return of restitution money they fraudulently accepted.
Mrs. Stanhope, this is your son.
Yes.
According to your complaint, your son and the Sayers' son were friends. Your son was visiting the Sayers' home and at some point asked Mrs. Sayers if he could use her computer and her pen pal account to purchase something that he wanted, and he would give her the cash. Now, I don't understand all this stuff about buying things with pen pal and computers, because what?
PayPal.
Pen pal, PayPal.
PayPal.
I don't understand all this stuff. You know, I go into a store and purchase something, and I see it, and I give them cash, and then they give me what I purchased. But I know a lot of people do that PayPal stuff. Anyway, you said it was okay, and you purchased something. What did you purchase?
A power level for a video game.
And how much was it?
$49.95, somewhere around there.
And you got the money, and you gave it to Miss Sayers.
Yes.
But at the same time, you purchased something else, or attempted to purchase something else, that you didn't give her money for. That was $400. And according to you, as soon as you logged in on it, you had second thoughts, so you canceled the transaction. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what he did. He says he canceled it.
This was a different purchase altogether that we discovered later for $19.95.
Now, I don't understand. How many purchases were made altogether?
Well, 3 total. The one we gave him permission for.
Yes, and the one he paid you for.
That he paid us for.
Right.
On my debit card.
Yes.
And 2 on my husband's debit card. One
totaling what?
One for $19.95 and one for $399.99.
When did you find out about it?
We went on a camping trip 2 days after the initial $19.95.
When was that?
He made that on August 28th. We left 2 days later.
Did you know about it on August 28th?
No, we did not.
Go ahead.
This put my husband's account into overdraft.
When was the $400 purchase made?
A week later on...
Is that right, sir?
On September 4th.
So you used that account fraudulently twice.
I don't know where the $19.99 came from.
You never bought anything for $19.99?
I don't remember purchasing.
Well, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Okay. Go ahead.
When we came back from our camping trip, the boys were together that day that he made the $3.99 purchase. And
what's your name?
Eloy.
Stand up. Did you know anything about this $399 purchase?
No, I did not know until he came to us and told us about it.
And when did he do that?
Well, we discovered it, and my mom talked to his mom, and then he came over later that night, apologized.
Sit down. So you didn't fess up to this until she called your mother, is that right?
After she came over and my mom talked to me about it.
When had you canceled that purchase for $399?
Almost 2 minutes after I purchased it.
Was it canceled the same day?
Yes, it was.
And he told you that?
Yes.
Did you confirm that with PayPal?
Yes, I did.
On what date?
The day that I found out that when all of this had happened. The purchase was made on a Monday, and I found out about it that Thursday.
So 3 days?
Correct.
But he had canceled the amount, so it wasn't charged to you?
Correct.
So this lawsuit says that Ms. Stanhope gave you $400.
Correct.
She wants that money back because you're not out $400. And your defense is, well, you're entitled to that $400 for your inconvenience.
We are out $400 on overdraft fees from the initial $19.95 purchase he made that first day.
Just a second. You had $400 in overdraft fees? Show me.
There were $33 overdraft fees, 2 returned check fees.
Well, how much was it altogether?
It all totaled up to $564.
Show me. There was a credit card purchase for Steam games?
That was the $19.95 purchase.
What did you purchase for $19.95, sir?
I don't know where that purchase came from. I don't remember ever purchasing something that was $19.95.
How do you know he purchased something for $19.95?
Because we do not have a PayPal account on that credit card. We only have it on my debit card. He set up a PayPal account on that credit
Eloy
card.
purchase something for $19.95?
We don't have a PayPal account on that credit card.
And you do?
Has it under Raymond Duffield.
And you do?
I did, but I don't have the account anymore.
And you did. Were you punished? How?
Pretty much everything taken away from me for about 2 months.
Yeah, because that's, you know, I mean, you canceled the charge, but it was stealing.
Yeah.
For that couple of minutes before you came to your senses. It was stealing. And you tend to put all their accounts into some jeopardy. You could have, at least. Because if banks can charge $33, they certainly can throw somebody's credit into all kinds of havoc. Just because you act stupid.
Yeah.
You can't do that. But also, your mother can't be out $400 when it didn't cost them $400. Judgment for the plaintiff, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Ms. Stanhope didn't want to discuss it with me in a rational manner.
Well, I tried talking to Mrs. Sayas twice on the phone, and she refused to return my phone calls.
She didn't believe that Raymond, her son, did this to us in the first place.
I've asked for overdraft fees that I could pay for that this may have caused, and she's refused to show me proof of that.
I couldn't deal with it.
I just hope that they, like, in the long run, they'll forgive me.
I'm still friends with him.
We can start doing camping trips together again and hanging out.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Armbruster versus Mikrit, step forward, please.
Teresa Armbruster is suing her son's ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old Jennifer Mikrit, for a loan to pay her first month's rent and security deposit.
Miss Armbruster, the defendant is your son's former girlfriend.
Yes.
This would be the son?
This would be the son, Jason.
Evidently, the two of them needed some money to move into an apartment. So, according to your complaint, you loaned them,
Right.
first month's rent and security on an apartment.
Correct.
How much money did you loan to them?
It was a total of $1662.50.
And then your son acted out a little bit because he was ejected from the apartment and the police removed him from the apartment, or at some point a restraining order was issued and he couldn't live in the apartment.
I think it was the weekend of the 7th or the 9th. They had gotten into an argument.
What?
Of September.
When did you move into the apartment?
August 1st, 2006.
So within a month of living there, things didn't turn out well, but they had lived there for a month.
For a month, correct.
There goes your first month's rent, right?
That's correct.
Did your son give you any money for
Yes,
that month?
he did.
How much money did he give you?
He gave me his $300, and I told him whatever he couldn't handle, I would cover, because I put the money out for the security deposit, so I would cover that. It was for him to get on
How
his
much
feet.
is the security deposit?
It was $997.50 was the security deposit.
Was the security deposit,
Yes.
which you should get back?
Yes.
Okay. Did the landlord allow you to break the lease?
He said to me, if you move out, I will give you your security deposit back.
Well, you have no problem giving Miss Armbruster back the $992 security deposit, do you?
Well, I just don't feel that I owe it to her because she never said that I had to pay her back when she gave me the
Just
money.
a second. Of course not. Of course not. I understand that if there was a loan, it was not a loan to you.
Yeah.
If she made a loan, it was a loan to both of you.
Yes.
And I guarantee you that I'm not going to see any proof that he paid her back any money. Are you still living in the apartment?
No, I just recently moved out.
How long did you live there?
I lived there up until November 1st.
Did you pay September's rent?
Yes, I did, and I also paid October.
Did you get any money from, what's his name, Jason?
No, I
For
did not, Your
September
Honor.
and October?
No, I did not.
So you
Your
paid the
Honor.
rent yourself?
Yes.
And under what circumstances did Jason leave the apartment?
He left. It was September 12th, I believe, 2006, when the restraining order was placed on him. 2 days before that is when I had called the police because he had violently, he choked me and put me on the couch, so I got really scared and I had called the police. And then the next day I came home and he was in my apartment with all of his bags stating that he was going to make the living room his bedroom and that I wouldn't have to see him. And all I really wanted was just for him to get out. And I wasn't leaving simply for the fact that my name is on the lease.
Correct, so you couldn't leave.
Exactly. So he refused to leave, so I had went down to the police station, had gotten a restraining order, and they made him leave.
I don't believe that you loaned, in the classic term, either of them anything. I think that you were helping out your son. I think you were annoyed that he was put out of the apartment, because that's what it sounds like in your complaint. You say now that she's living in the apartment on my money. Well, the truth of the matter is she is not, because your son lived there for the first month. She paid the rent for the next 2 months that she lived there by herself. He paid nothing. She was stuck on the lease. There is no way that she was going to move out of the apartment and leave him in the apartment, because then he certainly wasn't going to pay the rent because he's not working sufficiently to pay the rent, and she's stuck on the lease, so the landlord was going to come after her for the money. I wouldn't have moved out either. And if the situation became violent and untenable, he had to leave. But I certainly don't think that it's fair for her to keep the security deposit, because it's your money that you gave them with the expectation that they would be living in the apartment for the term of the lease. So I will issue an order to the landlord that any check for security deposit be turned over to you. Okay. Is that satisfactory?
Yes.
Perfect. That's all. That will be the order. Put your hand down.
are excused. You may step out.
He put his hands on me, and I will not take that from anybody.
I have nothing to say.
No, he never really showed anger towards me before. It was the first time.
I have nothing to say.
Yes, his mommy's boy.
I have nothing to say.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter Wilson versus Safai. Step forward, please.
26-year-old Lauren Wilson is suing former roommate Natasha Safai for destroying her clothes and other belongings. She is also seeking the return of 1 month's rent.
Ms. Wilson, the defendant was a friend of yours, and there came a time, sometime last year, that she invited you to come down to Florida to live with her. For whatever reason, you decided to take her up on that offer and move to Florida from where?
Salisbury, Maryland.
The understanding, according to you, was that the first month she would forgive the rent,
right,
and then you would be able to get a job, start paying your share of the expenses. According to you, you got down to Florida in November.
It was the first week in November, yes.
And according to you, at some point in November, you gave her a check for $175.
No, it was cash.
Cash. Mm-hmm. For $175 for next month's expenses.
In anticipation of December's rent, yes.
When did you give that to her?
I think it was about the 11th or the 12th of November.
Is that correct, Ms. Safari?
Yes.
Good. So mid-month, you gave her rent towards December.
Right.
And then you had a falling out. When was the falling out?
It was pretty much steadily. We were just bickering all the time.
What was the date she told you to leave?
It was the 16th of November.
And at that time, she told you that you had 24 hours to get your stuff out.
Right.
Is that right?
Yes.
And you claimed that when you finally were able to get all of your stuff, some had been destroyed.
Yes,
a
lot of it.
Had been destroyed, and some electrical items that you brought had been placed outside on the front porch, and by the time you got to get them, they were gone.
Right.
Ms. Safai says that she did not destroy your property, and she put out the property because you did not come within 24 hours to get your property, and she wasn't keeping it in the house, aside from the fact that she thought you were staying home all day fooling around with her boyfriend.
Right.
Which is why you told her to leave.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yes.
What made you think she was fooling around with your boyfriend, Miss Safai?
Because a roommate that I had staying there that was getting ready to move out was also home during the day, and she was informing me that Lauren and my ex-boyfriend were spending a lot of time together during the day in the room. They were also making phone calls back and forth to each other.
So did you confront your boyfriend?
Yes, I did.
What did he say?
He said that it wasn't true. But I trust the girl that, had been my roommate.
So how long did you keep the boyfriend after you had her leave?
A few months. We're no longer together.
Why didn't you kick him out?
He wasn't living with me.
Kick him out of your life is my question. Why kick her out? Why not kick him out?
I did eventually, just not at the same time.
Why? Because a good man nowadays is hard to find? What is it? Well, let me tell you this, Miss Safai. You cannot give her 24 hours to get out of your house. She gave you $175, which, according to both of you, went towards rent. She then becomes a tenant. Whether she's on the lease or not, she's your tenant. And unless there is some action that is dangerous to your health and welfare that she's doing in the house, like selling drugs out of your house, inviting people over there that are destroying your property, you don't have the prerogative to say to her, under the law, you have to get out immediately. So that's one thing. So A, you have to return to her the $175. B, you put her stuff out on the porch. What did you put out on the porch?
I put her clothes and all the rest of her belongings, her TV, her stereo system, all the stuff that she had brought, I put outside.
You can't do that.
Well, I didn't destroy her stuff like that. I have my witness that was with me when I put the stuff outside, and it does not look like that when I put it outside.
Well, then you didn't take good enough care of it, madam, because then somebody else did it, but it's your fault. You can't put her stuff outside and place her stuff in a position of either being stolen or destroyed or vandalized by other people. You can't do that. So I don't care what your witness says. Once you put that stuff out, having no right to put that stuff out because she's a tenant in your apartment, you are responsible for anything that happens to it. That's it. It's not a hard case. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $383. That's all.
$383?
$1,383.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
You're right.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
We obviously just should have thought better before we became roommates.
Girls being catty, I guess.
I let her come stay with me. It obviously wasn't going to work out.
One of the worst experiences of my life.
Not roommate with anyone.
Don't ever live with two females at the same time. That's what I would say.
Ann Gribben is suing singer-entertainer Porter Singletary for the return of her deposit. Ann claims Porter stopped performing halfway through her son's birthday party.
All rise. Yeah, this is case number 498 on the calendar in the matter of Gribben versus Singletary. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat, please.
Miss Gribben, you hired the defendant, who is a singer,
yes,
to sing at your son's birthday party.
Yes.
You gave him a deposit of $250. You want that deposit back because you claim that he came to the party and left after performing 3 songs.
Correct.
Mr. Singletary says that he came to the party, he was ready to continue with his part of the contract, but you had at least one unruly guest who wouldn't stop heckling him, and you did not take care of your guest. So that's his defense.
Yes.
How much were you supposed to pay him for the evening?
$450 for 4 hours.
And when did you hire him?
I'm not exactly sure of the date. I do have a letter that I did write him enclosed with my check.
Okay. What date is on the letter?
July 17th.
And when was the party?
18th of August.
How far do you live from the Gribben home, sir?
Oh, 15 minutes.
And tell me what happened when you got there.
I brought my equipment in.
What equipment did you bring?
Sound equipment, PA equipment.
And you set up?
And I set up.
What time did you arrive, sir?
I got there at about 10 minutes to 7.
You were due there at 7?
I was supposed to start at 7:30.
Okay, great.
And I actually started at 7:20 because there were guests there.
Okay, keep going.
So I started singing at about 7:20, doing everything basically that they've always heard me sing in the past at other events. It was about 8:10, still singing. They informed me that the sun was going to arrive. When the sun was to arrive, I was to stop the music and we're going to sing happy birthday to him. So we went ahead and we stopped the music. He came in at about 8:20. I've already sang an hour. And then the son comes in and we all sing happy birthday. And he comes in, he walks through. I continue to sing. A lady came up to me and she said to me, "Can you pick the pace up a little bit? Can you sing something a little bit more up?" I said, "Sure, fine."
Not Miss Gribben.
Yeah, I don't know who this person is.
You mean the person who came up to you?
The person that came up to me. So out of respect to the household and the people that were there, I said, "Okay, fine." So I sang something a little up. I sang 2 more songs. Then the lady, she comes back again, and she says, "Could you sing something, a little bit more up?" And I go, "I am singing up. What do you want me to sing?" She says, "Oh, I don't know, just anything, but sing it up." I said, "But if you tell me what kind of music you want, I can sing it." So then she says, "Oh, just go ahead." So I sang a couple of more songs. She comes right back again after 2 songs. And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Well, could you sing something a little more up?" I says, "Look, this is your 3rd time to come to me. You need to tell me what it is that you want." So then she says, "Well, just anything." So I said, "Okay, fine." I turned the music off, and that's when I went in to look for the plaintiff. The lady that had been coming to me to ask me these questions, they were in the room together. And when I came to the door, they were talking about me, and they both turned red in the face because they were saying something. And then I just said, "I don't know who this lady is." I said, "You know what I do? She wants me to do something that I don't know what she wants me to do, and it's total throwing off everything that I do as an entertainer." Within about 2 minutes, all of a sudden some music comes on, blasting. Some kind of rock punk music. And I go, "What are you guys doing?" And then so she says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't believe that this is happening." And
Who said that?
The plaintiff. And then so
who changed the music? Who changed the music, Miss Gribben?
The bartender.
The bartender. Go ahead.
So then she said, "Oh, Porter, I can't believe this." And I just said, "Well, you know what? I'm an entertainer and I'm singing, and I sing with a feel. And when you change the mood of the show, it throws everything completely off. And this music, and the kids are just bouncing their head around, and they're into this music."
So they're into a little more upbeat music.
Up to this music.
Okay. You left because of this disagreement that you had with her son's fiancée.
Well, whomever this lady was.
That was the son's fiancée.
Yes. It was the son's fiancée, the girlfriend, yes.
Girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Girlfriend, fiancée. Mm-hmm. Now I'll hear you.
Okay. I remember it a little differently. First of all, Porter's a fabulous singer. I don't question that one bit. We've seen him at several venues, different places.
And nobody's ever had a problem with him?
Nobody that I know has ever had a problem with him.
Right. That's why you hired him, because you liked the way he sang, and nobody ever had a problem with him.
Super
So
singer.
now I'm hearing you.
But it's a little different. The times are a little different. He wasn't there that long. I remember it that he sang 3 songs.
Well, he sang more than 3 songs.
Oh,
3
okay.
songs last half of the amount of time we've just spent together.
Okay. Okay.
So I know you said 3 songs. That wasn't
okay.
true. Keep going.
Well, what happened was my son's girlfriend did interrupt him. I don't know how many times it was. Porter came to me, what he's saying is true, and he was telling me what happened, and he was upset about it. And when he told me, I was upset about it. I had no idea. But I want to just tell you one thing that was a little different. Porter was going to come that day with a DJ. And what happened was 2 things. He was going to come at 1 o'clock that day, and we were going to go over the song list. But it was his birthday that day, and he called me and said his family was taking him out to lunch. Would it be all right if he didn't come? I said, yes, it's fine. We'll see you tonight. Okay. And then when he got there, I said, where's the DJ?
You mean you thought you were going to get a singer and a DJ for $450?
Right, well,
what planet do you live on?
I'm sorry, not a DJ. I'm sorry, DJ equipment. I'm sorry, okay. not a DJ. I'm sorry.
So you had entertainment for the entire day. He was going to sing and DJ equipment when he wasn't singing.
Correct.
For $450. Keep going.
Okay, but he got his DJ equipment stolen, and I said the reason I'm bringing that up is I said that was no big deal. I mean, he sings beautifully.
Let's go.
But what happened was when he came to me and told me that my son's girlfriend was had interrupted him, you know, I told him that I would immediately speak with her, and he's telling the truth. When he stopped playing, the bartender turned the music on. So I told Porter, I said, I'll turn it off. I mean, I begged him to stay. I mean, I told him I'd do whatever I could to, What did you say to your son's fiancée? I asked her, I confronted her immediately because she walked in right kind of behind Porter, and I said, what's going on?
And what did she say?
She says, well, I just wanted him to play something a little different or something a little upbeat.
Well, it's not up to her.
Oh, absolutely. I said, let me handle this.
And what did she say?
Okay, you know, but I mean, I agree that she was rude. But what I told Porter that night, I said, Porter, I mean, you're terrific, and everybody here thinks you are. We want you to stay. I mean, I'll muzzle her. I'll do whatever you want. I mean, I wasn't unruly guests. I mean, it was he has to admit, it was family and friends.
Got it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She's still the girlfriend?
Ex-girlfriend now.
How much after the party did she become an ex?
Couple months.
See how things all work out for the best?
We didn't really like her.
You didn't really
shouldn't say that.
And later today.
And her parents probably looked at you like I'm looking at you and saying, why? I raised this nice girl and she brings me home a buck. Why? What happened?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ann Gribben claims professional singer Porter Singletary stopped performing halfway through her son's birthday party. Porter claims he was rattled by one of the guests.
He came to perform in good faith. According to you, you've seen him perform at many other venues.
Yes, I did.
He's never had a problem.
Well, no, not that I know of.
If he'd had a problem, you would have known about it if he was there.
No,
so he's never had a problem. You hired him. He wanted to do a good job. Clearly, something at your son's birthday was so distasteful that he felt as if he was prepared to risk your good offices to say, I'm leaving. I can't work in this kind of environment. You acknowledge that your guest was rude to him. He doesn't have to tolerate somebody being rude to him. You know, it would have been nice if he said, well, I'll suck it up and continue to play, but he doesn't have to tolerate that. He can leave. So the question is, was the time that he spent at your home worth $250, which was your deposit? And it was. He's an entertainer. He entertained. He came to your house. He spent an hour and a half there. He set up. He performed for $250. That's a bargain. He's entitled to $250. So, did your son have a good time at his 30th birthday?
We still had a good time, but it was an embarrassing thing.
Of course you still had a good time. Well, don't you think he was embarrassed?
Yeah, I guess I've seen it a little bit differently, but I mean, I don't deny that he, you know, is not a good singer. I mean, I can't say that.
No, he was embarrassed.
It's just that we tried to do our best to make it good with him. I mean,
I believe that you did. I believe that you said, let me handle it.
Yeah, I did.
To your future daughter-in-law, let me handle it. She's still the girlfriend?
Ex-girlfriend now.
Ah. See what happens? All things work out for the best. How much after the party did she become an ex?
Couple months.
Couple of months. See how things all work out for the best?
We didn't really like her.
You didn't really
shouldn't say that.
Well, listen, you never know what's going to happen in the future, so got to keep all your options open. But it sounds to me as if he had a good time at his party.
He did.
Good. I'm glad. He's entitled to his $250. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
he did sort of ruin the party.
People do whatever they want to do.
He left, kind of left me high and dry.
I am not there to control the crowd.
Yeah, I think he had a bad day.
But it is a lesson learned.
28-year-old Eugene Tonda is suing the mother of his children, 27-year-old Amanda Petrie, for money loaned to move out of his home. Amanda claims Eugene kicked her out while she was pregnant.
Come to order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 492 on the calendar in the matter of Tonda versus Petrie.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated.
Mr. Tonda, you and Miss Petrie have 2 children together. You've never been married. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
How old are your children?
4 and 2.5, almost 3.
And in what state did you live?
Minnesota.
Where do you live now?
I live in Texas. That's where I'm from.
Where do you live now?
I still reside in Minnesota.
Your complaint, Mr. Tonda, alleges a loan to the defendant, which she was paying for several years. And then when she left Minnesota with your children and moved to Texas, she stopped paying the loan. You want her to continue paying the loan.
Correct.
Ms. Petrie says that she was coerced into signing a paper or agreeing to repay this money. It was never intended to be a loan. And now that she's in Texas, she's not paying you another dime. Let's see. When did you make this loan and what was it for, sir?
I originally took out the loan, Your Honor, in March of 2004. It was to get Amanda into an apartment of her own. She was living with me, but we were not together at the time. She had just moved back from North Carolina, where she had relocated to go live with her sister for a while.
And she took your child with her?
Yes, at the time we had just our son, Gino.
Were you happy about her going to live with her sister?
No, not at all.
Actually, his exact words were, "I don't care." My sister was standing next to me. He wasn't involved. He wasn't paying child support.
Well, he must have been together with him at some point if your sister was in the room when he said, "I don't care."
I went and told him, and she came with me.
Oh.
You told him what?
That I was thinking of moving to North Carolina, that he and I didn't get along. He was verbally and emotionally abusive, and it wasn't good for me, and it wasn't good for our son. He wasn't paying support at the time, and that I needed a fresh start.
And he said?
And he said, "I don't care, whatever."
Actually, Your Honor, that's not true at all. I was paying support to her directly. And the manner of which she broke this news to me was we were actually at a bowling alley, and she had got furiated about some silly thing and then said, "Well, I'm moving to North Carolina," and just picked up and walked away. And it wasn't like a calm, cool, collected.
Was it in a bowling alley that you told him this?
I did tell him.
Fine. Got it. Okay, then you went to North Carolina. That didn't work out.
And he wasn't paying child support.
Moved back to Minnesota at what point?
I moved back at the end of November of '03. He convinced me to move back. We had found out I was pregnant with our daughter now, and I wasn't going to move back, and he convinced me to move back, that he had made mistakes, and he was going to be more involved. And then a week after we moved back, he had decided that living in his house was too much of a family union, and we just argued all the time. And then in March of '04, 3 weeks before I was due with our daughter, he kicked us out. He didn't take the loan out to help me. I wasn't searching for an apartment. I had no job at the time. I was due in 3 weeks. He took it out, didn't discuss it with me, had no idea, and said, "You need to get out of my house." I let him know, "I don't have a job. I'm due in 3 weeks. Where do you expect us to go?" And he said, "Well, I took out a loan." So I didn't know about it. I've never signed anything.
Okay, let's go.
That, again, not the case. We had discussed it before. We were not together at the time. Yeah, she was living with me. I, at the time, had still originally purchased this house with a friend. So there was a couple roommates there, and it wasn't an environment for, 2 kids. There was, 2 other, mid-20-year-old men living there. So I let her live there as an accommodation until we could find something.
So you were living with him in a house with other adult males?
They lived in the basement, yes.
With other adult males?
Yes.
Did you share a room with him?
Yes.
In that house?
Yes.
Okay, so you're sharing a bedroom?
Correct.
So far, you're losing my sympathy, Mr. Tonda.
Well, it was an unfortunate circumstance. I mean, we had to do what we had to do, and that's why I didn't kick her out. I brought up a proposition that I felt would be beneficial for both of us to get her into a place with, more room before our daughter was born.
Why? Who was going to be there to help her?
Who was going to be there to help her?
That's my question.
We had gotten a place, 15, 20 minutes away from my house, so...
That's 15 or 20 minutes. She's expecting a baby. She's living in Minnesota. I assume she has no family in Minnesota.
She did not have any family, per se, but my family had taken her on as like her own.
She had no family in Minnesota. She's due in 3 weeks. Your child.
Yep.
So it would seem to me you'd want to keep her around at least until she's back up on her feet after the baby is born. This doesn't seem like the appropriate time to find her a new space, Mr. Tonda.
Well, I felt it was more appropriate before the baby was born than after.
You're wrong. It was selfish and babyish.
I disagree.
I don't give a rat's tutu whether you agree or disagree, sir. You want me to take a poll as to whether or not most mature adult males would say it was appropriate to find an 8.5-month pregnant woman who's got a 1-year-old a place of her own in a town where she has no family? Sir, you want me to take a poll?
No,
you don't want to. You don't want a poll there, sir. Believe me.
I don't think it's necessary.
Believe me, you don't want a poll. It was a selfish thing to do. So you took out a loan. You got her an apartment.
Correct.
Right? Well, you didn't expect her to pay the rent, did you?
Well, not
how was she
right
supposed
away.
to pay the rent? 8.5 months pregnant.
Well, not right away, but that's
Well,
why
when?
we took out the
Let's see
loan when
when.
she started working.
Let's see when.
When she started working.
Well, when did you think she was going to start working?
I would assume roughly 6 to 8 weeks after her daughter was born.
Right. And just a second. And what was she supposed to do with a 6-week-old baby and a 1-year-old baby? What was she supposed to do with those?
Well, it's not like she was just on her own. I mean, obviously, I was an active parent involved in paying support, so she had the support that I was paying her.
Just a second. That's not being an active parent.
I don't understand. What's not being an active parent?
Giving money is not an active parent.
No, that was to help the situation. I'm not defining being an active parent by taking out a loan.
Well, what did you do when she got this apartment by herself? Did you go over there every day?
I was over there quite a bit, actually.
That's not my question. Did you go over there every day to take care of your son?
Well, I wouldn't say every day.
Well, what did you expect her to do with the baby and a new baby when you weren't there? What did you expect her to do?
Your Honor, it's a circumstance where, unfortunately, we weren't together and it didn't work out. But I felt I did what I could to help her out, and, my family...
So then what are you doing here? My question to you, sir, is what are you doing here? You took out a loan to get her an apartment so she could be on her own after impregnating her twice.
Well, I'm here to... a loan is the key word. She agreed to pay, and she faithfully paid on it for 2 years on the loan. And then once I filed for custody of my children, because she picked up and moved to Texas with 5 days notice...
Well, that was a bad thing for her to do, to pick up and move to Texas if you were a good and involved father.
Because she has only her best interest in mind, not the interest of the children, hence the reason that I filed for custody.
And you only have the best interests of the children in mind.
Actually, I do, Your Honor.
Then what are you doing here?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She said, oh, that's the grandma.
There are a lot of curse words that go on in a labor and delivery room. I guarantee you that she called you a couple of names, too. If she didn't, she probably meant to.
And later today...
Well, I paid over $900 to ship her stuff back, which...
As well you should.
I don't agree.
Whether you agree with me, Mr. Potts, is not particularly relevant in my life.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Eugene Tonda says the mother of his children, Amanda Petrie, owes for a loan to move out of his house. Amanda claims Eugene put her out of the home when she was 8.5 months pregnant.
How much support were you paying 2 years ago?
When we had just our son born, I was giving her about $400 a month.
$400 a month?
A month.
That's incorrect. Okay.
I was giving her $200 every 2 weeks.
And what do you give her now?
$800.
Every 2 weeks?
No, $800 a month is what the court has ordered me to pay.
Well, that's the same thing as you were paying her before, for one child. Now you're giving her the same amount for 2 children.
Right, which is double. Normally it's only a 10% increase from the first one to the second one. So
That doesn't sound like, sir, the best interest of the children percentage. It's usually a 10% increase?
Yeah, 25% of your income for the first one, and then in Minnesota it's 35%.
No, that's not, sir. You don't get confused.
Well, I know it's not 10%.
Those are the minimum federal child support guidelines, which have been adapted in every jurisdiction. That's the minimum. Do you work?
Yes, ma'am, and I'm in school.
Who takes care of the children?
They go to a Child Builders Christian school. It's a private preschool.
And who pays for it?
I do.
How much do you pay for daycare?
$650 a month.
Okay, so she pays $650 a month. And how much of the daycare do you pay, Mr. Tonda?
I believe a portion of the total support goes to that. I do nothing specifically.
That's not what I asked you.
Well, I don't pay anything directly to the...
Right. So if we take away what you pay, which is $800 a month, from the $650 that she pays just to keep the children so that she can work, we have a grand total of $150 a month. I'm speaking. I'm speaking. We're going to divide that by 2 equals $75 a month for each child. And that we're going to divide by 30 equals $2.50 a day is what you pay for each of your children in child support.
May I speak now, Your Honor?
Sure.
Okay. I don't know her exact financial situation, but obviously I want to be involved to the point where I'm filing for custody of my children. And the fact is that she must not be hurting too bad because she's obviously able to afford a lawyer to fly up to Minnesota to try to fight from keeping me from having an opportunity to have my kids reside in the state where I live.
Mr. Tonda, I want you to listen very carefully, sir. I have tremendous tremendous sympathy for non-custodial parents who don't see their children. And I have usually very little sympathy for custodial parents who pick up and move away and make it difficult for the non-custodial parents to see their children. Usually. But let me explain to you, sir, that in this case, Miss Petrie followed you from Wisconsin to Minnesota, where you live, 2 times, right?
Correct.
And when she came back the second time, she had a baby, and it didn't work out. You say, I fulfilled my obligation. I set her up in an apartment because I wanted to be close to my children, paid the rent so it would be comfortable and easy for her, and gave her $200. But out of that $200, I expected her to work with 2 children, and to pay for daycare, and to pay me back my loan. Do you see why sympathy is waning for you, Mr. Tanda?
Your Honor, the state was picking up the majority of the tab of the daycare when they were in Minnesota, so the situation that we had in Minnesota was perfectly fine.
No, it wasn't working fine. You put her out and put her in her own apartment. And what you're supposed to say, Mr. Tanda, is, I'm sorry for bringing you to court. It was a stupid thing for me to do because I have found a very unsympathetic judge who doesn't find that this was a loan. The court finds that it was a very comfortable way for you to stay in your house with your 2 bachelor boyfriends and get rid of your responsibility that you didn't have to deal with on a regular basis, which clearly, according to your own testimony, you didn't. You weren't at her apartment every day after the baby was born, taking care of your son, taking care of your daughter.
Well, maybe 6 out of 7 days. I don't, you know.
Yeah, baloney. Coming over and spending an hour is not being there to do the job of a parent, sir.
Than an hour.
And I'm not saying that she was smart to have a second child with you.
No.
1 mistake I can understand. 2 is dumb.
I agree.
But it takes 2 to tango.
It does.
What I'm telling you is, right now, the mother of your 2 children seems to be taking care of her financial responsibilities relatively comfortably. She's got a job, she pays for daycare, and she's doing that with marginal help from you.
Well, unfortunately, with her picking up, moving 1,300 miles away,
Where
what I
did
can
you
do
expect
becomes
her? Listen to me, sir.
automatically
Where did you
marginal.
expect her to move to? You expected her to move to a jurisdiction that was closer to you, where she had nobody?
No, she picked up and gave me 5 days' notice when I'm supposed to have my kids for a Christmas vacation, and she calls and tells me they're not coming and she's moving to Texas.
Right. That's where her family is, though. That's where her family is, right?
Her mother, who she said nothing but bad things about the whole time.
Her mother
I've known
and
her.
who else?
Her brother lives a few hours away.
Got a mother and a brother.
Yep.
What do you do for a living?
I work for a cell phone company.
Which cell phone company?
Verizon Wireless.
Good. They have offices in Texas. Why don't you move there?
It's
Listen to me. That's where your family is, sir. Your 2 children are in Texas. Her support system is in Texas.
She had a tremendous support system from my family, too.
Now, her family's not your family.
Right.
You want to be near your children?
Your Honor, can I talk
Go to
for a minute?
Texas.
When our son was being delivered and her mother had called and she was holding our son, this is how much she adores her mother. She said, oh, that's the grandma
No, I
of
did
the phone.
not.
And we have it on
Mr.
videotape,
Mr.
Your Honor.
Ta-
So
Mr.
for her
Tanda,
to say that that's an excuse
Mr.
to move down there and have her support system,
Mr.
she doesn't
Tanda.
even barely get along with her mom.
Mr. Tanda, you get along with your mother?
I do get along with my mom.
Ever not get along with your mother, sir?
I never
Did you
bad-
ever not get along with
I
your
would,
mother?
but I never badmouth my mom.
Did you ever
to
not
everybody
get
I
a...
know.
That's not what I asked you. Did you ever not get along with
Of
your
course
mother?
as much as everybody probably hasn't.
Okay. And I'm going to tell you something. There are a lot of curse words that go on in a labor and delivery room. A lot. I guarantee you that she called you a couple of names, too. If she didn't, she probably meant to. So let me explain something to you, sir. You don't have a profession where you're licensed to practice only in the state of Minnesota. And if I were you and if I wanted to see my children, I would call up my boss and I would say, please find me a place in Texas so you could be a lot closer to your children if that's in your mind. But based upon what I hear, you wanted her out of the house. You took out a loan. I see no reasonable expectation for the foreseeable future of you being paid back any money from somebody who now has 2 babies, no job, living in a place where she has no family. I don't see any reasonable expectation of you being paid back, sir. And that's part of a contract, if it's a loan. You did the right thing if you weren't getting along and helping her get set up. Don't be a fool now, Mr. Tanda. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Once she got the paperwork that I was filing for actual custody of my children,
You don't kick someone out 3 weeks before they're due with a child.
she said, well, then I'm going to stop paying you on that loan.
You could have waited a few months after I had the baby when I was stable, had a job.
And I said, well, then I'll take you to court. She said, go ahead.
And then I could have done everything on my own, and this would have never taken place.
Lee Holtz is suing her ex-fiancé, Thomas Parrish, for unpaid rent, his share of their rental application fee, and for harassing her over the phone.
Now, this is case number 455 on the calendar in the matter of Holtz versus Parrish. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Ms. Holtz, it is your claim that Mr. Parrish, who was a boyfriend of yours for a period of time, owes you some money for rent and also for harassing you. Mr. Parrish says that you're actually the one who's bothering him, that he contributed to the rent while he was living at the apartment with you and your children. But when he moved out of the apartment after a disagreement, he stopped paying rent. He's not on the lease. He feels no obligation to pay rent when he's not living there. Okay. When did you move into the apartment with Mr. Parrish?
After we got engaged December of '05.
Did he give you a ring?
Yes, he did. I have it with me.
Okay.
And I even went with my mom and bought a wedding dress, and I bought my daughter's dresses. We were going to have a ceremony on the beach. And
when did you move in together?
Mid-February of '06. And he went with me to the leasing office. When we went to fill out the forms for the application fee, which was $150, and to transfer within the same complex to a 2-bedroom, that was $500.
So you had a 1-bedroom apartment with your 2 children?
Correct.
Where were you living, sir?
I was renting a house in Chesapeake,
with
which is
his mother.
About 35 minutes from where she was living.
Okay, so you weren't living together in the 1-bedroom apartment?
No.
No.
I'm looking at him.
Sorry.
So you moved into the 2-bedroom apartment in February of 2006, and the lease was in your name only.
Correct, but we had discussed, we had an agreement that we would rent the 2-bedroom together for 1 year to save up money to buy a house for after we got married.
Good.
And he paid half the rent for 10 months.
Right, I got you, while he lived there.
Right, correct.
And he paid the rent faithfully, half of the rent, despite the fact that he's only one person out of 4 living in the apartment, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, but they were minors.
I don't care if they're minors or not. He's one person out of 4.
Correct.
Living in the apartment. You get child support for your 2 children?
I get for 1 child because he has them half of the month and I have them half the month.
So you get child support for 1 child?
Correct.
How much?
$400 a month.
Okay. And he paid half of the other expenses on the apartment for the 10 months that he was living there?
Yes, he did. He paid half the utilities.
Half of everything?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, what happened when he moved out?
He didn't give me any notice. He just...
So you must have had a disagreement.
We got into a fight.
About what?
I had asked him to do the dishes, and he was watching TV.
Just, you've got to get a turn.
And I waited about 2 hours. He still hadn't done it. So I went ahead and did it. And I got upset with him. I said, thanks a lot for helping me out around the house. You know, you eat on the dishes too. And he said, well, I was going to do it. I didn't know there was a time limit. And he started yelling at me. My youngest daughter was home. He was yelling in front of her. So I'm like, well, I don't want you yelling around her. He said, well, then I won't. And he went and packed his bags. I said, where are you going? He's like, I'm moving out. He gave me no notice. I said, what do you mean? Are you going to a hotel room? And he's like, no, I'm moving out. I'm not coming back.
Ms. Holtz, there must have been some clue to you prior to that things weren't going well.
We had had a few disagreements, yes, about...
So things were not going well?
Correct.
Well, you don't want your children to be involved with that sort of hostile environment, do you?
No, but he had only yelled one other time in a year and a half. And
well,
it
that's
wasn't
fine. That's fine.
Day occurrence.
That's fine. You don't want it to get any worse, do you? You don't want your children in an environment that's not healthy.
No, that's why.
So that it would be a so that it would be a good idea that he left.
Yes.
I would agree with that.
But I felt he was obligated for the last 2 months of the rent.
Where are you living now?
I just moved to a smaller apartment that I could afford on my own.
Just a second. How much rent was this apartment that you moved into together?
$1,203 a month.
And how much was the rent in the apartment that you had been living in?
It was $988, the 1-bedroom, and my new rent is $895.
So the difference in rent was $200 a month between the 1-bedroom and the 2-bedroom.
Right, but if we wouldn't have gotten engaged, I wouldn't have gotten that apartment. I would have gotten something I could afford on my own.
Listen
Your
to
Honor.
Me. I look at objective things. Objectively, you were paying $1,000 on one, and this is $1,200.
And I knew I couldn't afford it if I didn't have a roommate, or if we hadn't gotten engaged. I would have gotten a smaller apartment on my own.
Good.
And I also have bank checks for the transfer fee and the application fee, which he agreed to pay half of. And I also have harassment. I want like $1,000 for phone harassment. I have phone records of him calling.
You mean after, just a second, Ms. Holtz, do you mean to tell me after he moved out, because he said he wanted it over?
Correct.
He started calling you? You didn't call him?
No.
Just a second. Just listen to me. You just listen to me. You didn't call him?
No, Your Honor.
He called you?
Yes, and I have tape recording of it, calling me terrible names.
You never called me.
Just a second. Mr. Parrish.
Yes, ma'am.
When you left, sir, it is your claim that Miss Holtz called you.
Yes, ma'am.
What did she say when she called you?
She called me a lot of adjectives that I won't use here, and I left. The reason I left was more than just the dishes.
Go ahead, sir.
To back up and give you some background of just that day, I won't be long-winded. It was a Sunday morning. I had some work to do. I was going to do it early in the morning. Instead, I put that work off until the afternoon. While she laid in bed, I did the dishes, fed the kids, cleaned the kitchen, did 2 loads of laundry, put all that away, spruced the house up while she's still in bed, asked her if there's anything else I can do before I went and did my work. No, everything's fine. I went away and worked it took me about 3.5, 4 hours. I came back.
What kind of work did you do?
I'm a small contractor.
Go ahead.
Took about 3.5, 4 hours. I came back. The NFL football playoffs were on. I watched the second half of the first game. The next game was the Dallas game, which I'm a huge fan. She knows that. I sat down to watch that. In the meantime, she had gone in the kitchen and started going off about everything. I had left a Walmart receipt on the counter from where I bought some groceries the day before, which I bought my share and then some of the groceries for all 4 of us. She started griping about the receipt on the table. You know, why'd you leave this receipt here? You want money from me? I said, did I ever ask you for money? Is this why you left the receipt? She on and on and on. This goes on for over an hour.
It's not true, Your Honor.
Shh, don't interrupt him.
After the conclusion of that, she goes and stands in front of the television, or not directly in front of it, but right beside it, hand on her hip, and says, you've watched one football game, now I expect you're going to sit here and watch another one? And I looked at her and I said, yeah, I'm going to watch another one. You know, I'm a Dallas fan. I'm going to watch the game. And she said something, and that was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I got up. I had some shirts and some clothes in the apartment. She goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm leaving. I've had enough.
Your Honor, he never works on Sundays. He hates working on Sundays. He did not go to work
Your
that
Honor,
day.
I'm a small contractor.
What difference does it make whether he
Because
went to
he's
work or
lying.
not?
It's showing that he lies.
I
He's
did
lying.
go to work.
Ms. Holtz, if something doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. And what doesn't make sense to me is I listened to him only for a couple of minutes, and I've made a judgment, because I'm usually good at making judgments, that he's not a nut.
Thank you.
I don't.
You haven't heard this.
Oh, I don't think he's a nut. I think maybe he was stretched to the limit, but I don't think he's a nut. And I think when he left, he probably would have left you alone. But you started bugging him because you were angry, just as you are angry right now. You are so angry right now, you can't even contain yourself.
I'm just nervous, Your Honor.
You're angry. You're still angry.
I'm angry at what he called me, yes. He called me very vulgar and obscene things, and I don't deserve that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I could understand if she was going to sue me for bigamy, because in that pretty little head there's about 12 personalities.
This is what I get on messages.
Mr. Parrish.
Just letting you know.
Let him show his true colors.
And later today,
Defense is he broke the windshield in the car instead of breaking your face, because that's how mad he was. Am I reading it right?
Yes, you are.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Natalie Holtz claims ex-fiancé Thomas Parrish owes for breaking their lease and for harassing her over the phone. Thomas claims he moved out because of Natalie's constant nagging.
I'm going to ask you again to answer my question and answer it honestly. After he left that day, who called who first?
He called me.
First.
Yes,
and
he called me 27 times.
Just a second. So what did he say, Miss Holtz, when he called you after he left?
He said that I only think about myself, that I'm a self-centered, and I can't repeat what he called me. And yes, I did call him once. I asked him for my key back.
Just a second. My question was, who called who first?
He called me first. I have the phone records.
You have a phone record that shows all your outgoing calls?
Yes, I do, but his
Great.
is first.
Great. Let me take a look at what you have. Put a mark next to where you called him.
I'll put a star where I called him. All the other check marks are him calling me.
Just go back to the beginning.
The beginning is where he left on the 6th.
What's your phone number, sir?
286.
At your mother's house?
That's my cell phone. That's the only.
At your cell phone?
That's the only phone I use. Yes, ma'am.
Well, on the 6th, madam, 286 is outgoing.
It says incoming.
Outgoing, outgoing, outgoing. Then you have a couple of incoming. But on the 6th, I want you to point to where I've checked this off, please, and let her look at it.
All the highlighted ones. Okay.
I'm not talking highlighted. Look at where I made the check marks.
That was in the afternoon. He was still home. Or he was still, he hadn't moved out yet. That was in the afternoon.
Why would she call me?
The next day. It's the next day when he started harassing me.
Listen to me. Okay, give it back to me.
Incoming.
Miss
These are all
Holmes,
incoming.
Miss Holmes, you don't want me to think you're a nut, do you?
No, ma'am.
On the 6th, which is the day he left, according to you.
That night.
I'm speaking. You called him at a time when you said he wasn't out working because you said he doesn't work on Sundays. So clearly, you called him at that cell phone number, 216, 252, and 252.
Yes, he went to the grocery store.
So what'd you call him 3 times for?
He called me, and I called him back on several occasions.
So he went to the grocery store for whom?
For all of us. We all had to eat.
So he was out on family business?
Yes, before we got in a fight. Yes, ma'am, he was.
After I finished working.
Just a second. Okay. Then the next phone call on the 7th of January was a phone call from you to him at 8:09 p.m. and he called you back at 8:29. You called him first. Then you called him at 9:10 p.m., 6:59 a.m., 7:30 a.m.
He wouldn't return my call to get my key back, Your Honor.
Please.
And I have the text messages right here of all the incoming text messages.
Okay,
in
Miss Holmes,
one
I'm going
day.
to listen to me, madam. You got to get over it. Get over it.
It's okay to call somebody the B word and the C word?
Get over it. Sticks and stones break your bones. Names will never hurt you. Did your mother ever teach you that? You have to get over it. It's finished. You may be angry. You may be angry that you devoted 10 months of your time to him. He may not have said nice things to you. I mean, you can tell.
I've had 24 calls since the 9th on here.
Listen to me. Listen to me. I'm looking at your phone records.
I don't have them.
You called him first.
To get my key back and my mailbox key back.
Change the lock. What? Go ahead.
I just want to clear up a couple of things. You've done a nice job of clearing up the harassment. First of all, I don't understand her suing me for ever how much she sued me for, $1,200, $1,300, whatever it is. I could understand if she was going to sue me for bigamy. I could understand that because in that pretty little head there's about 12 personalities.
Mr. Parrish.
This is what I get on messages.
Mr. Parrish, listen to me. Not necessary, sir.
Okay, I just letting you know.
Let him show his true colors.
Not necessary.
Okay.
She may be stressed. She's a single mother.
She's a good mother.
She's a single mother. Takes care of the kids. Money, I'm sure, is tight. I'm sure it was much more comfortable when you were there.
I understand.
Much less stressful financially when you were there. You're not there anymore. A life she anticipated is over. But I don't think that you're responsible for any rent when you weren't living there. I think that you took care of more than your fair share of the bills when you lived there in a family that was really not yours. You left. The responsibility is hers. She was angry. And these phone records do not support harassment on your part, sir. I mean, common sense dictates that if you left, you would have been just as happy to be left alone. Period. But very hard when you are stressed to deal with that kind of change. I get it. But you're not entitled to any money,
Well,
madam.
we had
The case
a
is
verbal
dismissed.
agreement,
That's
Your
all.
Honor.
That's all.
Please excuse me. Step out.
He was the one that had the 6 or 7 different personalities.
I don't know what her problem is. I don't know.
I saw that, and I didn't want my kids around that.
I guess she just can't let go.
Ray Wood is suing his ex-girlfriend, 23-year-old Mindy Golden, for damages resulting from a false arrest for burglary. Mindy claims Ray unlawfully entered her home after they broke up.
Order. All rise. Yes, case number 473 on the calendar in the matter of Wood versus Golden. You're welcome, Judge Price. I've been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Mr. Wood, this lady used to be your girlfriend, and I would assume that the person standing on your side is your brother. Is that right?
Yes.
It is your claim, Mr. Wood, that the defendants falsely reported that you were burglarizing their home, causing you to be arrested. You spent money on attorneys, and you want to be compensated for their false reporting of this burglary. Miss Golden and her brother say that you actually were in their home without permission, which is a burglary. They say that you retaliated by calling Child Protective Services and claiming that the two of them were using drugs in front of their children, in front of your children. Right. And in addition, Ms. Golden is counterclaiming because she says because of your action, she was fired from her job. She wants to be compensated for her lost wages. When did this unholy alliance begin?
June 2004.
Did you live together?
No.
Ever?
No.
Did you ever stay over?
Occasionally.
How many times a week, Mr. Wood?
Once, maybe twice.
Did you have a key?
At one time, yes.
Would you occasionally go over to the house and answer my question? I don't want you to think of where I'm going, Mr. Wood. All I want you to do is try to tell me the truth.
Okay.
The truth will set you free.
Okay.
Did you ever go over to the house and wait for her to come home?
Yes.
Went into the house by yourself?
Yes.
That happened frequently?
No.
In the course of the year and a half that you were together, did it happen 10 times?
No.
Happened 5 times?
Maybe. Yes.
When you went over there and neither she nor her brother were there, prior to February of 2006, did anybody report that you were in the house without permission?
No.
Did you ever take anything that you weren't supposed to?
No, I did not.
Tell me what happened on February 17th, 2006.
It was about 7 o'clock in the evening, 7:15. I was in Binghamton, and I got a call from Mindy stating that her brother had caught me in the trailer. And she said that I didn't have any business being in there because we had broken up the previous week again.
It was longer.
Shh, shh. And what did you say to her?
What's going on? Why are you doing this? I'm in Binghamton. I haven't been in Windsor for over an hour. Why are you doing this? And she said, you were there. I'm going to see you in jail. I'm calling the troopers, and slammed the phone down.
Okay. Miss Golden, were you at home?
No, I was at work.
Your brother was at home?
Yes.
Your first name, sir?
Kevin.
Do you remember what day of the week the 17th of February was?
Remember the day? No, I don't.
Do you?
Yes, it's Tuesday.
Do you remember what time she called you?
7:45.
In the evening?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Golden. I want you to tell me what happened on the 17th of February.
Yeah, I went out to eat.
No, look at me.
Oh, I went out to eat with my girlfriend, came home from dinner, proceeded to enter in the door, and when I bumped into Ray coming out as I was coming in.
He was coming out.
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you say to him, and what did he say to you?
Just nothing. We were just both like, yeah. And I heard a hissing noise, and that was the propane. So I went to investigate that, and I turned around. By the time I fixed that, he was gone.
What was wrong with the propane?
It was unhooked from the tank. Hooks up to the trailer for heat and cooking.
And it's outside?
Outside, correct.
Now, when you went inside, what did you see?
Nothing really. It was dark.
No, inside the trailer, sir.
Oh, what did I see? Nothing really. He was coming out as I was going in.
Anything missing?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
Anything vandalized?
No.
The only thing unusual that you found was outside the trailer?
Correct.
Mr. Golden, I'm unclear, sir. Was Mr. Wood inside the house or outside the house?
Inside the house, ma'am.
Inside?
Yes.
Is there a key that you used to get inside the house?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you think Mr. Wood got inside the house?
Had his own key?
Did you have a key to the house?
No, I gave it back to Mindy.
I had asked for it back, and it took him a week to give it back to me.
So you got it back?
Yes, I did.
When, Mr. Wood, did you call Child Protective Services on the Goldens?
I didn't hear from the troopers for a week to 10 days on the charge. And so as soon as I left the troopers.
So you filed the charges with Child Protective Services after these charges were filed against you?
Yes.
No.
No?
No. I have
Really?
copies of the
That
reports.
would- you see,
The day that he was arrested, February 17th, against me and my brother.
after he was arrested. You have to stop trying to figure out where I'm going, madam. You're not that clever. When did you stop being involved in a relationship, Mr. Wood?
February 7th.
Had you been back to the house since February 7th?
No.
So all the information that you had on February 17th when you filed the charges with Child Protective Services, you had on the 7th when you left. Is
Yes.
that right? And I assume you filed the report with Child Protective Services, Mr. Wood, because you were concerned about the child.
Yes.
And you filed those charges indicating that there was drug use in the home.
Yes, I did.
Now, what were you doing between February 7th when you broke up and February 17th?
As far as what? I don't
I
understand.
want to know if you were incapacitated.
Oh, no.
I want to know if you were hospitalized.
No.
So you want to tell me, sir, why you waited from February 7th to February 17th to report to Child Protective Services something that you must have felt very strongly about this drug use in front of a child, right?
Right.
So explain to me why you waited 10 days.
I thought maybe it would change.
So what told you that it wasn't going to change when they filed these burglary charges against you? Is that what you're telling me?
No.
You mean it was just a coincidence?
I thought maybe.
You mean it was just a coincidence?
Yes.
That the charges were filed on the same day with Child Protective Services as the charges for burglary were filed against you?
Yes.
That's a coincidence, sir, that I find very hard to swallow. Because if someone is legitimately concerned about the welfare of a child, how old is your child?
He's 3 now. He was 2.
About a 3-year-old child that has no voice, then I assume that this drug use has been going on for a long time, right?
Yes.
That you would have reported it immediately, right?
Right.
You chose to wait serendipitously on the same day as you were arrested for burglary to report it to Child Protective Services.
Yes.
That would be unfortunate.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Did you ever smoke marijuana in front of your child?
No, ma'am.
Did your brother?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, you would know that, right?
I would hope so.
And later today,
If you gave her, let's say, $5 a week, it means going one less time to McDonald's, getting one less Frosty Freeze.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ray Wood claims ex-girlfriend Mindy Golden had him falsely arrested for burglary. Mindy is countersuing, claiming Ray made false allegations to Child Protective Services.
Now, let us move on to your counterclaim.
Yes, ma'am.
Go.
He had filed another report against myself and my daughter's father. So 2 separate reports to Child
What were you
Protective.
doing with your daughter's father?
Nothing. He doesn't even know my daughter's father.
Well, what did he allege you were doing?
The same thing.
Did you ever smoke marijuana in front of your child?
No, ma'am.
Did your brother?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, you would know that, right?
I would hope so.
Let's get to the counterclaim.
Honestly, I just want him to leave me alone. And I wouldn't have filed the counterclaim if he hadn't done this.
Okay, so you're going to withdraw the counterclaim because you want me to deal with his claim of false arrest?
Please.
Mr. Wood, I believe you were there. How about that?
I wasn't there.
I believe you were. I don't see any other reason, sir. I understand that the grand jury refused to indict you, probably because you really didn't do anything while you were there except maybe pull apart the propane so that they would run out of gas. That's what you did. I don't necessarily believe that he saw you inside the house, but I believe that he saw you there. I don't know what you were angry at, but I believe that he saw you there. And I believe that you retaliated, and you retaliated by filing charges against both of them for drug use. I believe that that's an inappropriate way to conduct yourself if you were legitimately concerned about the welfare of an infant. And what you do is you report those concerns immediately to Protective Services, and you don't wait until you have an axe to grind to do it. That's not what Child Protective Services is there for. So I believe that you were there on the 17th of February. I don't think that you were there to burglarize the house. And by the way, Miss Golden, you want him to leave you alone? He better leave you alone. Did you file for a protective order?
Yes, I did. And
Do you have one?
I did. It ran out, but he was leaving me alone, so I didn't renew it.
How long did you have it for?
6 months.
So now he's leaving you alone?
Yes.
Perfect. Let it remain that way. The lawsuit's dismissed, sir. You were there on the 17th of February. I believe you were there. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Came to my work and wrote things on the wall about me in the men's bathroom.
She smokes marijuana. They're really heavy into drugs, and I'm not.
Calling repeatedly.
Me?
Sometimes she'd call and hang up the phone.
Not me.
Yes, she has at my work and at my home.
She was upset because we broke up.
Regardless, it doesn't matter.
23-year-old Kenneth Kip Pinette is suing his former friend, Stacy Schwartz, for taking his car without permission and damaging the transmission, the clutch, and one of the tires.
Now, this is case number 456 on the calendar in the matter of Pinette versus Schwartz.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Mr. Pinette, you were at a party with the defendant. I assume she was a friend of yours, and it is your claim that she took your car without permission and wrecked it.
She didn't wreck it. She hit a curb and blew out a tire, and the transmission went out.
And Ms. Schwartz says that she had an unfortunate accident and that she might clearly be responsible for replacing a tire, but certainly not the transmission, since she had your permission and this accident was clearly not her fault.
Well, she did not have my permission.
Good. So let's go back. When was this party that you had?
A couple of months ago. It was a Friday night. It was at my house, and
Listen, Mr. Pinette, how old are you, sir?
23.
What do you do for a living?
I am a market analyst.
Ever been to court before, sir?
No, except for traffic tickets and...
Well, that's court. So, if you're a plaintiff and you have a claim, first thing you figure out is what date.
Yes, Your Honor.
Because the questions get harder after that, Mr. Panett. So a couple of months ago on a Friday night isn't a date.
I believe the date was December 14th, Your Honor.
That's a date. Now, it was on December 14th, 2006. Where were you?
At my house.
Who else was there?
I don't know the exact names, but a bunch of my friends.
And what were you all doing?
Drinking, watching TV, listening to music.
Great. Having a good time. Being responsible.
Yes.
What happened next?
Well, I didn't keep track of everybody around that night. I went to bed maybe around 1 or 2, and the next morning, Stacy called me and said that my car was broken down. I said, you know, how could that be? It should be in front of my house. And she said she was in Sunrise, which is about 20 miles away.
Where do you live?
Downtown Sacramento.
Go ahead.
She said it was broken down. She explained to me that she had taken my car the night before and that it had broken down the night before and that she had spent the night and was calling me in the morning. And I was...
Spent the night where?
At one of her friend's house, I assume.
Okay.
And I explained to her that she had better get my car back to me.
What kind of car do you have?
It's a Nissan Sentra.
Year?
1997. And she said she would. We exchanged words. I was a little upset, and then I fell back asleep. I didn't get my car back until the next day. She had it towed back to my house. At first, she hadn't even told me that a tire had blown out. I did see that for myself when it came to my house. Then she explained that to me. I had not given her permission to drive the car, so I was very upset.
Okay. Don't repeat anything.
Okay.
I have other things to do. Are you finished?
She had told me that she would pay for all damages. She was very apologetic at first, and I felt, you know, like I would forgive her. I had it diagnosed, and she refused to pay it. She says she's not responsible for that.
You had it diagnosed. What was the bill?
It was $1,500, not $1,593.83. I'd originally said $1,600. It's I'd rounded when I looked at the receipt. It's actually $6.17 less than that.
Mr. Panett, how did you pay for this?
My father loaned me the money to pay for it, actually.
Did you pay for it in check or cash, sir?
I believe my father used his credit card to pay for it, and I had to pay my father back.
What's your father's name?
John Panett.
His phone number?
It's in my cell phone. I'm sorry.
Fred, would you please get his cell phone so that we can get the father's number, please? Thank you. And he's going to verify that he paid this bill, sir?
Yes,
when I
he
call
would.
him on the phone? Good. We're going to do that.
Okay.
In a minute.
Okay.
Now, I'll hear you, Miss Swartz.
On December 14th, I was hanging out at Kip's house, and I asked him if I could borrow his car to go over to Jessica's house.
Where does Jessica live?
A few blocks from his house.
And he said?
He said yes, he let me borrow it.
Good. So you understand, Miss Swartz,
That's a different place than she was. Excuse me, Your Honor.
You do understand, madam, that you did have limited authority to take his car to go to Jessica's house, which is a few blocks away. You understand that?
Yes. Yeah.
Now tell me what happened.
I drove over to Jessica's house and told her that I was using Kip's car, and she called me at 5 o'clock in the morning and woke me up.
At Jessica's house?
Yes. And told me she was drunk and stranded in Sunrise, so I didn't even think to call Kip and ask permission because he let me borrow his car. He knew I wasn't...
No, my dear.
He knew I wasn't going to bring it back until the morning, so I...
Darling!
Yes.
You get it now? You look as if you're smart enough to get where I'm going.
Yes, ma'am.
You went to pick up your friend in Sunrise. And how far is Sunrise from Jessica's house?
Approximately 20 miles.
20?
Miles.
Miles, not blocks. Miles. And it was coming back with her, this drunken friend of yours, that you had the accident.
Yes.
Now tell me about the accident.
I was just driving and I was coasting, so I was in neutral, and then I tried to put it into gear and it would not go into gear, and I went to park immediately and I hit the curb and popped the tire. That was probably about 5:30, 6 o'clock.
You must have hit the curb very hard.
Well, yes, it was hard enough to pop the tire, and I immediately changed the tire, and since it was about 5:30 in the morning, my friend that I picked up just walked to her house because we were about a block away, and I slept in the car and called Kip about 9 o'clock in the morning to tell him that I was going to get his car towed back to him.
Let us assume that I believe you, that Mr. Panett said that you could borrow his car to go to Jessica's house, which is a few blocks away, to stay over. When you exceeded his permission by going 20 miles away the next day, you no longer had his permission. Do you understand that?
But he knew I was going to have it till the morning.
Don't tell me what he knew. He gave you permission, according to you, to drive it a few blocks. A few blocks is not 20 miles.
I have my witness here that saw him give me permission.
I just said, don't you have your listening ears on? I said, if I believe you, he gave you permission to take it a few blocks away. Once you took it 20 miles away, you no longer had permission.
Your Honor, he lets me borrow the car all the time.
That's not true.
Just a second. Where do you think you are?
Right here.
Where is here?
In this witness chair.
And until you stand up there, what are you supposed to do?
Listen to you.
Right. Once you exceeded the scope of the permission, you no longer had permission. That's the law. Do you understand it?
Yes.
So all I have to do is deal with the issue of damages. And for that, you're going to give me John's cell phone.
Yes, ma'am. Just let me power it up.
Power it up.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What a nice father you have, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Do you know what he doesn't remember?
What?
He doesn't remember you paying him back.
And later today...
What were you doing for the last 3 years?
I was selling cars.
Why did you decide to go back to school?
I made a life-changing mistake of driving under the influence and lost my license.
That was life-changing.
Very much.
Kenneth Kip Panett claims former friend Stacy Schwartz took his car without permission and damaged it. Kenneth says Stacy not only ruined the transmission and clutch, but she also popped one of his tires.
John Panett, this is Judge Judy Sheindlin. How are you? I'm very well, thank you. Do you have a moment for just a couple of quick questions for me? I'm here, as you know, trying a case involving your son and this young woman who took his car without permission. Are you familiar with that? Okay. Did he ever ask you for any money to help him repair this car? When was that? 3 months ago. Do you remember how much it cost you, sir? Approximately. And did you use your credit card? Did he pay you back that money? I know, I have children. Did he tell you how it happened? That he needed a new transmission? Was he driving the car? Okay. Very good. And you used a credit card? Okay, great. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you taking the time. Bye-bye now. What a nice father you have, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And as a matter of fact, your father does remember helping you out and paying for this transmission a few months ago.
That's correct.
Do you know what he doesn't remember?
What?
He doesn't remember you paying him back.
Well, I owe him money pretty much all the time, and I am always paying him. So I'm in the process
that he
of
doesn't
paying
remember. I mean, he does remember laying this money out for you, but he doesn't remember the fact that you paid him.
I have not fully paid him back, Your Honor. I apologize.
Well, how much have you paid him, sir?
Well, I owe him a total of quite a bit more than that. So I guess if you got down to that bill, I haven't paid him any because I'm paying him for things that I owe him.
Well, you have no objection to making the check payable to your father, do you?
No, not at all.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,593.83 to be made payable to John Panett. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Thank you.
It may take time, but we probably will be friends again.
Well, now that it's all been paid for, I would probably hang out with her again.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Lawson versus Lemos, step forward, please.
Christine Lawson is suing her ex-boyfriend, Joseph Lemos, for the cost of a big screen TV they purchased as a couple. Joseph says when they broke up, Christine kept the TV.
Ms. Lawson, This gentleman used to be your boyfriend. You lived together for a period of time. Something happened while you were living together with your TV. You claimed that he wanted to buy a big screen TV. You put it on a credit card. You allowed him to use the credit card. He used it not only for the TV, but for some other things. He paid for the other things that he used. Ultimately, he paid off the credit card up to the amount of the TV after you broke up, and then he stopped paying for the TV. You want him to pay for the television. Sounds very reasonable, right?
Yes.
Except that you have the TV.
Correct.
So, I'm confused. Mr. Lema says that he did, in fact, use the credit card to purchase some other things. Even after you broke up, he continued to make payments on the credit card until he had paid off all of the items he had purchased, but for the television.
Correct.
And the reason he didn't pay for the television is because you have the television. When did you break up?
It's about April or May of 2006.
And when was the television purchased?
August of 2004.
So you've been watching the television?
Correct.
In your house?
Yes.
Why don't you pay for it?
I never wanted it. I don't like it. I would love to give it back to him, but I don't have, I'm using it as collateral, I guess, to get the rest of the money that he owes me.
The only money that's owed is owed for the television.
Not entirely.
Most of it is for the television.
I guess you could say that.
What you want me to believe, Miss Lawson, is that he said to you, you can keep this $3,000 television and watch it, and I'm going to make the payments on it.
No, that's not how the conversation actually
Well, tell me
happened.
how conversation actually went.
Okay. When we broke up, there was still about $4,000 on the credit card, which, as you said, there was multiple things on there. He was paying me up until September of 2006.
Correct,
He was
and then he stopped. Right.
And he wanted to take his TV, which would have been fine to me. However, I couldn't guarantee that I would get the rest of the money that he owed me if I handed over the TV. I had no way of contacting him. I had no cell phone number. The only way I had was email. Most of the emails that I had sent him were ignored.
He paid you for the 6 months.
Well, he was paying on multiple things. That wasn't the only thing on there.
He paid the credit card honorably.
Correct.
Until the only thing left was a television that you were watching.
Well, the television was...
And he wanted it back when you broke up.
Correct.
Well, then you're watching it. You pay for it. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Well, the amount owed on the credit card exceeded what the amount of the television was.
When?
When we broke up, when he stopped
but
paying.
Come on, Miss Lawson. I just made it perfectly clear to you that there's an agreed set of facts, and the agreed set of facts are he paid until September when the only thing that remained on the credit card was the television set, which he had initially asked for when you broke up, which you declined to give him, which you've been watching and you've been using. You pay for it. That's all. Case is dismissed. That's all.
Why did y'all excuse? You may step out.
I'm a little shocked. The balance of the credit card was $4,000. The price of the TV itself was $1,500.
A little bit shocked. I did promise her that I would pay for it.
I felt this was the only route to go to ensure I would get my money, which obviously didn't work.
I felt, why should I pay for something that I don't have in my possession?
He had just stopped paying me. I couldn't get a hold of him. The replies that I got were very nasty.
There was communication, and I've been out of work for medical leave, and I told her once I go back, she'll start getting money for it.
I'll never lend a boyfriend money again.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Corville versus Corville. Step forward, please.
Tina Corville is suing her estranged daughter-in-law, Jennifer Corville, for an unpaid loan and car insurance payments. Jennifer says Tina's son is a deadbeat.
This is the son?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is your soon-to-be ex-daughter-in-law. It is your claim that while she and your son were living in your home, you made a series of loans to her.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Corville says that you made gifts to her because she was the only one working in her family. Your son wasn't working, so she did some car payments made in order to get her back and forth to work, and some insurance payments made on the car. I have a few questions.
Yes, Your Honor.
How old are you?
25.
What do you do for a living?
I'm unemployed at the moment.
How long have you been unemployed?
For not that long, because I had a job January 1st whenever I had put her out.
Listen to me. Listen to me. How long have you been unemployed?
Since January 1st.
Of 2007?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to January 1st, 2007, your mother says that you weren't working a good part of the time.
Ma'am.
That's what your mother says.
Yes,
Is she
ma'am,
lying?
That's true. No, ma'am, that's true.
How long did you have the January job?
Not long, because I didn't even
Just
go
don't tell me because.
No, ma'am, I hadn't gone offshore. It was an offshore job, and I didn't have a ride to go offshore. That's why I didn't have that job. I hadn't
So
even
you
worked one
didn't have
day.
a job?
I had the job. I got hired.
When was the last time that you got a paycheck, Mr.
I
Corville?
didn't get a paycheck from them because I never worked one day
Mr.
because
Corville,
I
I
didn't have
want
a
you to
ride.
listen to, put on your listening ear, sir.
Okay.
When was the last time, month and year, that you had a paycheck? Think hard.
2006, and I can't give you the exact month.
Well, give me close to the
Okay.
exact month.
About the 10th month, or maybe even the 9th.
What would that be, the 9th month?
The 9th month
Yeah.
is September. Took me a while.
Good. September. Now, in August, who did you work for?
Pizza Hut,
Doing what?
delivery driver.
How long did that last?
Not long.
Why?
Because I was told I couldn't use the car to do it no more. I was putting wear and tear on our car.
Your Honor, that was our car at the time. I was a manager at Pizza Hut.
Listen, you know what kind of sympathy I have for you? Zero. You picked him. And not only did you pick him, but you picked him, and you have a child.
Not with me.
I know that.
Okay. I was just clarifying it.
You know, put your hand down. Sometimes it's better to be alone. Sometimes the loneliest you can be is when you're with somebody.
Yep.
Did you
know?
You know what I'm talking about? Now, your son, who was without a job, moves in with you with his wife and her child.
Yes, ma'am.
How old was he when he left home?
He's been in and out of home since he's 12 years old.
In and out of your home?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, how did you feel about it when he told you he was getting married?
Didn't know the girl long enough.
But she has a job, right?
Yeah, at the time she did have a job, yes, ma'am.
Now, your son had no job at the time.
At the time?
At
Yeah.
the time?
At the time he did have a job.
Doing what?
He did sheet metal.
What happened to that job?
He had differences with the guy.
Yeah, the guy fired me because I asked for a raise.
And what did he say when you asked him for a raise?
He told me he didn't feel that I deserved it, and if I felt like I really needed it, I could go look for a job elsewhere because I no longer had one with him.
No, that's not what he said.
Yes,
He
ma'am.
said, I don't feel as if you deserve it. If he feels if you deserve more, go elsewhere.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, he didn't say that you can't have a job with him. He said, go elsewhere.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you went elsewhere.
Yes, ma'am.
Where'd you go?
To Pizza Hut.
Was that paying more than your sheet metal job?
Yes, ma'am.
Nah.
With the tips, yes,
No.
ma'am. Okay.
Now, tell me about this first loan. After they got married, they moved in with you because he's not working, right?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
Were they paying rent in your house?
Not at the beginning, no.
Were they paying rent later?
When the second go around, they were going to pay rent. They moved in twice last year.
Fine. Well, the second time they moved in, did they pay rent?
1 month.
How much?
$150.
And who paid the rent?
My son.
What was he doing?
He was working for
Trim.
Newcom.
Yeah.
What happened to that job?
We had went and we had a court date for me and her both to attend to, and we asked the
What kind of court
instructor-
date?
I don't really remember, to be honest with you.
You had a court date and you don't remember?
Yes,
What kind of
ma'am.
court date did you have?
It was actually court for his paternity test.
Yeah.
It wasn't nothing to do with me.
But
For
we
a
left.
quiet. For a paternity test for what?
His second child.
He has children?
Yes, ma'am.
Wunderbar.
He has two, one for two different women.
Now, how much money in total did you give Miss Corville?
$958.
Tell me what it was for.
In January.
January of what?
Of 2006. She bought a car with her income tax. Didn't have money for the insurance, so I loaned her $200.
Just a second. Tell me about what she didn't have money for the insurance, and she said to you
she would pay me back.
Did you have that discussion with her or with your son?
With her.
Tell me about the discussion.
She said that she would help us, give us the money because of the fact he was out of work. And she didn't want to see us without a car because if we didn't have a car, we were unable to work.
Was he
And that she
working?
said-
Was he working at the time?
No, ma'am.
Did you subsequently get a job, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you did. Good. Where did you get a job?
That's whenever I went to the electrical company.
And how did you get to the electrical company?
She had brought me a few occasions.
Who did?
Miss Jennifer.
Your wife?
My wife, yes, ma'am.
What's next?
In May, she called me at work crying because she had a payday loan that she had taken before they were married, crying because she was going to get arrested. Could she please borrow some money?
Is that right?
It is.
Good. How much was that?
$305.80.
80.
That you owe her. Go ahead.
Then in September the 19th, their ABC insurance canceled. So they had to find new insurance.
They had to find new insurance?
She had to find new insurance.
Where were you working? You told me you were working in September, sir.
Yes, ma'am. That's whenever we were both working at Newcom.
Oh, okay, so you were both working?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were using her car to get there?
Yes, ma'am.
Ah, good. Perfect.
So I paid her down payment for $155
That's
for
fine.
the Geico.
That ensures that your son is working. Perfect. What's next?
Then in October, she was short $100 because they both lost their jobs. She was short $100, so to keep her car, I put the $100 difference in pay that she would pay me back when she'd find another job.
Why'd you get him to pay you some money?
It wasn't his car.
He was using it. They were a married couple.
No,
listen. Miss Corville.
I had lost
Your son
3
put her
jobs.
out of the house when?
January 1st, 2007. Why?
What was my question?
I couldn't use the car to go find a job, nothing. She had stopped letting me use the car, everything. That was her
Really?
car.
And you had been using the car to go and look for a job?
No, ma'am.
Well, you said she stopped.
Yeah, like she hadn't let me. And within 3 months since we had been back over there, I had got a job and went to Houma. That was the only time.
So that's why you threw her out?
Yes, ma'am, because I was supposed to be leaving to go offshore and she wouldn't bring me.
Go ahead.
He didn't get a job in Houma. He actually went to Houma to get a job. He failed his drug test, and he was unable to work offshore. So he actually didn't
What
work.
kind of drugs were you taking that you failed the drug test?
None.
You mean that the test was a mistake?
No, ma'am, I was going offshore.
So you didn't fail the drug test?
No, ma'am.
Would you like to take one today?
Doesn't matter.
She owes you for the payday loan. That she owes you for. For the car, consider it a contribution to your son. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $305.80. That's all. Thank you very much.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I hope I did hear the end of it. Judge Judy sure did fill me with some justice.
If that's what she wants to believe, let her live in her land. I don't care.
And I hope that I never hear from these people again.
Arian Mimi McDonald is suing her daughter's ex-boyfriend, 20-year-old Chad Pittman, for damaging her 96 GMC Jimmy during an argument with her daughter.
All rise. That's case number 324 on the calendar in the matter of McDonald versus Pittman. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated.
Miss McDonald, you don't know what happened on this day with the car, is that right?
Not besides what my daughter had told me.
Your daughter was driving, but
Yes.
the car is in your name,
Yes.
so you're the one who wants the defendant to pay for the damages
Yes,
on the
ma'am.
car. But your daughter's a big girl. She makes her own mistakes. She's going to stand up and you're going to sit down.
Do you mind if I stand up in between these two? Because he's caused so much turmoil with our family.
Oh, he's not going to make any problem.
Okay.
You see this guy? Squash him like a bug. You understand that, Mr. Pittman?
Yes, ma'am.
Or you keep an eye on Mr. Pittman, because Miss McDonald will feel more comfortable if you do that.
Sure.
Thank you. Miss McDonald, it is your claim that the defendant backed into your car when he was angry. Mr. Pittman says that you rear-ended him. Mr. Pittman used to be your boyfriend?
Yes.
How long was he your boyfriend?
Almost 3 years.
And how old are you?
17.
And then when the two of you broke up, he started dating, or even before, I don't know how it happened, but now he's with your cousin, who was 15 and pregnant. How wonderful. I assume that the pregnancy is a result of your relationship. Is that right, Mr. Pittman?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are you?
20.
And what do you do to support yourself?
I work for one of my friends.
Doing what?
I'm a foreman, construction foreman.
You work every day?
Yes, ma'am.
How much do you earn a week?
800.
And who do you live with?
My parents.
Pay rent?
No, ma'am.
What do you do with your money?
I put it up for my kid, and I'm buying clothes and all that. Insurance, phone bill, just I pay bills with it.
You have another child?
No, ma'am.
So this is the child that you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Do the parents of this 15-year-old who you got pregnant want to put you in jail?
No, ma'am.
Oh.
She allowed me to date her.
Dating her is one thing.
I know.
You know, dating, you go out to eat, you go to a movie, you go ice skating. You know, there are lots of things you can do other than make babies with 15-year-olds, Mr. Pittman. Who are these people?
My mom and my witness.
You didn't give them a good enough lesson in the facts of life. Okay. Tell me when this incident happened with the car, Miss McDonald.
On Friday, August 11th of 2006.
Tell me what you were doing near Mr. Pittman.
It's a parking lot where a bunch of people hang out on Friday and Saturday nights.
And you knew he was there?
I didn't know he was there until I pulled in.
At that point, he was already involved with your cousin?
Yes.
You were angry about that?
Yes, very.
So you pulled in and you saw his car. Was your cousin with him?
Yes, she was.
And what did you do?
I noticed that
No. Look at me. Don't look over there. Look at me.
I noticed that he was there, so I pulled up beside him.
Why?
Just...
Come on.
I was going to talk to him. I pulled up and she was with him. So I confronted him.
Well, what did you say to him?
Because he also was still calling me every night, wanting to be...
Shh, just a second.
wanting to still be with me at the same time as being with her. And I felt like she needed to know that too.
Well, why did you choose that time to tell her?
It was probably the only other time I would see her.
Yeah, you could have called her on the phone. Could have told your mother. Your mother could have called whoever her mother is and said, listen, this is not a good situation. So you went into this parking lot and there was clearly going to be trouble. So when you say you confronted him, what did you say?
I just, asked him why. Why is he doing this to me? Also wanted to be with her. He needed to choose one or the other.
And then what happened?
We got into a small argument. He then pulled off, and I pulled off behind him to leave because I was so upset. And
So if he pulled off to leave, he wanted to get away from the situation. Why did you follow him?
I wanted to leave. I wanted to go home. I was upset.
Oh, why didn't you wait until he left?
I was just so upset. Didn't know what to do.
Go ahead.
And whenever he pulled off, I pulled off behind him. He hit the brakes, so I hit the brakes too. He threw his truck in reverse and backed into me, and then pulled off and left.
He wanted you to leave him alone. Miss McDonald, he wanted you to leave him alone. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Pittman?
Ma'am?
Is that a fair statement?
Yes, ma'am.
So?
Someone I knew called the police for me, and they came and did a police report and an incident report, which I have a copy of, along with pictures of the damage. And then Monday, whenever my mom got home and we started filling out to file with his insurance company, she then told me that my witness, Dana, who was her coworker, had overheard her talking to some other people at work, and she was actually there in the parking lot Friday with her son.
Perfect. Would you stand up, please? Dana, you have a last name?
Morella.
What were you doing in the parking lot?
Me and my son were just up there eating, and we were out in the parking lot looking at all the cars. They have a lot of the nice cars that my son likes to look at, the Nopi cars, and we were just out looking at the cars when I noticed that a big black Bronco just backed up into a green Jimmy. At the time, I did not know that it was...
You drive the big black Bronco?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so he backed into her.
Right.
Okay.
And that's all I seen.
Thank you. Let me start with you, Mr. Pittman. It was wrong for Miss McDonald, not smart of her, to confront you and your girlfriend in the parking lot on August 11th. It was wrong for her to follow you after you tried to leave, because you don't know what she's doing, whether she's going to follow you, whether you have no idea at this point, because you were leaving and she wasn't finished yet. I want you to understand that I am sympathetic with that. I'm not sympathetic with you, but I'm sympathetic with that. Now, all I want to know from you is, did you back your car into hers?
No, ma'am.
You better have very strong, convincing evidence, Mr. Pittman, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be responsible for all the damage on her car. I'm telling you that right now, because I find that even if you did back into her car, she's partially responsible for what happened on that evening. Do you understand that? He was trying to get away from her. She was acting like a nut. She's a kid, and she was acting like a nut, and he was trying to get away from her, and she wouldn't let him. So even if he did say, listen, I'm going to back up into her, I'm not going to hurt her, but then she's going to stop, that was sort of justified under the circumstances. So she is partially responsible. Do you understand that, young lady? So you better be able to convince me that this lady who was in the parking lot with her son is lying to me.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
After she got through with me, she started on my fiance. She says, well, I hope you and your baby die at birth. That's her exact words.
And later today,
he squired you around town, bought you lots of things, and this was merely a payback. Is that right, sir?
Yes.
When did you start dating Prince Charming?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 17-year-old Michelle McDonald says her ex-boyfriend, 20-year-old Chad Pittman, purposely rammed her car with his truck. Chad claims it was Michelle who rear-ended him.
Okay, let me hear.
Your Honor, me and my friends and my fiance was up there at Kmart, and we were minding our own business talking to some of our friends.
Oh, my heart hurts me when you say fiance with 15 years old. Go ahead.
And she come flying up next to us and parked next to us, and then she started on me, and she just started arguing from the start.
Of course she did. I got it. I understand that. It's exactly what she did.
I was shocked. I was embarrassed, because here it is, a bunch of old people were in front of me, and she just come out of nowhere. And after she got through with me, she started on my fiance. And she got in an argument with her, and she's like, Michelle, you know, I love you, you're my cousin and all, but I don't need this right now. I'm 3 months pregnant. So she says, well, you know, I hope you and your baby die at birth. That's her exact words. So she looked at me and she said, I don't need this. So we crank up, we leave, and she starts following us. And I look back to her. My top was off my Bronco at the time. I looked back at her and I said, don't follow us. And I started off again, and I went around a median. As you see over there in the visual, I went around the median, and I went to stop again because she was still following us. I was going to get out, you know, go talk to her, you know, be like, Michelle, look, we don't need this. You know, your cousin, my fiance, she's pregnant. We don't need this. So I went to get out. As soon as I put it in park, she hit me as we was going around the turn. She hit me in the back. So I'll go ahead and get out the truck. She backs up, pulls up next to me, and I don't remember exactly what she said, but she said a few things, and she left. And I looked at my Bronco. There was no damage that I could see. So I got my Bronco, which is private property, you know, so I didn't think nothing could be done anyway. So
Did you see this lady in the parking lot?
Oh, ma'am.
You work together?
We used to work together.
When?
She left at the end of August.
Do you live near each other?
No.
Have you seen each other since work?
Once or twice, maybe.
Just good. Yeah. Okay. You have a witness?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to hear your witness. First, let's start with your name.
Robert Drew Norton.
Go ahead.
We had to top off the back of the Bronco.
Were you in the car?
Yes, ma'am.
How many people were in the car? 3 of you?
There was 2 in the back, 2 in the front. And we parked at the meeting, as you see over there. And she pulled up, slammed brakes as I was talking to my friends on the other side of the Bronco. And she started yelling out like all the stuff he said, such as, I hope your baby dies at birth. And she said we don't need it. And then we left, and then she pulled off behind us. We ran around the median, and he went to stop and tell her to quit following, and she hit us. And then she pulled off and said something, and then went flying out the parking lot beside Kmart. And then he looked at his truck, and then we left.
Okay, now I'd like to see the pictures. You work?
I work at Chicken Run.
Okay, good. You ever been in trouble with the law?
No, ma'am.
Uh-huh. Well, if he backed into you, madam, he certainly didn't back into you square on. This indicates that you had damage just to one side of your car. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now you can stand up next to your daughter.
Your Honor, can I say something?
Yes.
After she left, there was no cops called. They were called 2 hours later. And one of my friends up there called me and told me this happened at 8:30, 8:45, because I called my mom when I was on the way home, and I don't live but like 15 minutes from there. So it was 2 hours later before she even called the cops.
Go ahead.
The cops were called immediately. There was a 2-hour delay before they got there because there was a shooting in the area, and they apologized. There was nothing they could do. They got someone there as soon as possible.
Ms. McDonald, I'm not satisfied that Mr. Pittman, although he clearly suffers from a lack of good judgment in other social areas of his life, hit your daughter's car. I'm not satisfied he did that at all. I think that your daughter was furious that night. I think that she got into the parking lot expecting to see him there. She saw him there. She confronted him. She confronted him in the car with her cousin. She was so angry that when he chose to leave because he didn't want to hear her vile talk, she followed him and she hit him. And that she can't do. And I don't believe your friend. Sorry. And believe me, if I felt that Mr. Pittman was responsible, at least even partially responsible for hitting the car, I would have held him partially responsible for fixing the damage to your car. This whole incident was precipitated by your daughter. She has to bear the responsibility for it. And the responsibility involves fixing her car, your car. That's all. That's what she has to do. She has to get over him. He's no bargain. You'll find somebody else.
That's not a problem, ma'am. She was supposed to take out a warrant from him, but would not do so. For
a warrant for what?
For aggravated assault is what the police officer told us.
Well, let me tell you something. It's a good thing she didn't, because if I were representing him, I would sue her civilly, because what she told you is a fib.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She had no business being in the parking lot that night. She had no business confronting him, and she had no business following him.
And later today...
You don't look happy, Mr. Smith.
This is my everyday appeal. I always have this MO.
You just have a half-empty appearance.
Yes.
Okie dokie.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 17-year-old Michelle McDonald says her ex-boyfriend, 20-year-old Chad Pittman, purposely rammed her car with his truck. Chad claims it was Michelle who rear-ended him.
Miss McDonald, he did not hit her car. She hit his car, and she had no business being in the parking lot that night. She had no business confronting him, and she had no business following him. And you have to accept the responsibility for that and not blame other people. You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. That's all. Case dismissed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
We're glad it's over with. We hope that she can go on with her life.
I think this is so wrong because he did back up into her. She was not following him.
I still care about him, and that somebody could just do this, it hurts real bad.
She's just really angry about, you know, it being a cousin.
She was sorry, but she loved him.
She lost out, I guess.
Didn't want to hurt me, wanted the best for me.
I just hope she betters herself, you know, no hard feelings or nothing.
I've realized I'm better off without him.
Hope she moves on with her life and move on mine.
The family's a big fallout. There's no communication at all, no contact at all.
I've got so much more in my life now without him.
Oh, it's done and over. I don't see them. I try not to run into them.
This would be something that's run our family for the life.
Jennifer Richardson is suing her estranged mother-in-law, Sandra Richardson, for the value of a 2001 Chevy Monte Carlo she bought from her. Jennifer claims Sandra refuses to hand over the title.
Order. All rise.
Now, this is case number 362 on the calendar in the matter of Richardson versus Richardson.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Judge Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Miss Richardson, this is your soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law, and I assume that sitting in a witness chair is your soon-to-be ex-husband.
Yes.
Okay. According to you, you purchased a home for your son and his wife, and the idea was that you and your husband were going to live with them. Unfortunately, your husband became ill and passed away.
The house was originally bought for us.
Yes, the house was originally
with
bought.
our money.
No, I'm well, sorry, Your Honor.
No, it was your money.
Well, can I just say something? If she wants to lie about
No, just a second.
10,000.
Just a second. Who paid the mortgage on the house?
I did. It was in my name.
I didn't ask you if it was in your name. I said who paid the mortgage.
For the first 8 months, my husband and I did. When they moved in, they shared the responsibility.
That's what I gathered. The first several months, you and your husband were making the mortgage payments on the house, and then you and your husband moved in, and then you split the mortgage payments, right?
Yes.
But the house was purchased for them, and they were there alone for a period of time. Anyway, the house is really not the issue unless we get to the counsel. Don't interrupt me. House isn't really the issue until we get to the counsel claim. We're going to talk about the house in a moment. This has to do with the car that you purchased in your name, but that your daughter-in-law used. But your daughter-in-law used it to take you around from place to place, all your appointments. She sort of chauffeured you around. Anyway, there came a time when you left the house. And shortly after you leaving the house, your daughter-in-law and son split up.
Right.
Your daughter-in-law went home to her family. Where do you live now?
That's not what happened.
Where do you live now?
I live with my mother.
In what state?
In Florida.
And where do you live?
Michigan.
Okay. Did you take the car with you?
At what
Where
time?
is the car now?
My husband has it.
Okay. It is your claim that you wanted the car, and your mother-in-law said you have to pay for it. You were annoyed that she said that you had to pay for it because you always thought it was your car, but you sent her $3,000. She doesn't deny that you sent her the $3,000. But she never sent you the title to the car and never sent you the car. So you want something. You want either the car or you want your $3,000. Mother-in-law says the $3,000 was for other bills that were outstanding. And in addition, she's counterclaiming because she says when you moved out of the house, you took her property, some appliances and things that belonged to her. So I'm going to cut right to the chase. Mrs. Richardson, since you acknowledge that your daughter-in-law sent you $3,000. What did she send you the money for?
I asked for $5,000 for the car. She sent me $3,000. They owed me like $6,000 just back rent, so I don't figure the car is paid for.
Wrong. If you asked $5,000 for the car and she sent you $3,000, you can't offset that. Get the money that they owe you from rent from your son. Get it from him, not from her.
May I speak?
When it's your turn.
Okay.
She stole $20,000 worth of appliances and stuff.
Listen to
from my
me.
home.
When you purchased this house, for the first 8 months, where she and your son lived there, were the appliances in the house?
There was old appliance. I purchased all brand new appliances.
And when you went home, after your husband died, when you left, in what month was that?
Around May, about the middle of May.
Of 06? And when did the two of you split up?
August.
And between May of 06 and August of 06, where were the appliances?
They were in the home when I left.
And where did you go? From Florida back to Michigan?
Michigan.
And what did you take with you when you went?
I took my grandfather clock, my big TV, left leather furniture, all the appliances, everything in the home when I left because it cost me so much to move all the stuff. So I left it for the kids.
Absolutely right. So it was a gift. So let me explain something to you, Miss Richardson. Don't get involved between your son and your daughter-in-law. The courts will determine if she took marital property, because once you made a gift to them, you didn't make a gift to your son. Listen to me.
Okay.
You made a gift to them. You left it when you moved back to Michigan in May. You left it as a gift for the kids. And if they had stayed together as husband and wife, they would have had all the appliances. The problem is they split up. And then you said, well, I don't want her. She's a stranger to me now. She can't take this property. I bought it. It was a gift. Once you give a gift, you can't have sticky fingers. You can't say, well, it's a gift, but I'm going to hold on to it.
But I bought it as myself because I lived there.
I don't care. When you left it there. And you didn't abandon it along with the leather sofa. You took what you wanted. You took a grandfather clock. You took other things that were important to you. And you left the other things there for your children. Then. So it therefore became marital property.
She had no reason to steal it, though.
She didn't steal it. It was a gift.
It wasn't really a gift.
Well,
it
Miss
was 'cause I
Richardson,
lived
I'm
there.
trying to explain to you, madam, you're not getting what the law is. Okay. That's the law. And if your son, during the course of the divorce proceeding, says, well, she took this marital property and she had no right to take the marital property, a judge will decide that. But it's not yours. You can't sue for it. You gave it away. You gave it away to them. And as between the two of them, a court will determine whose property it was, whether she cleaned out the house or whether she didn't. But it's not yours anymore. You gave it away.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
When I moved out...
Where did you go?
I went to a friend's home.
Boyfriend.
It's going to be over. Do you understand? It's going to be over.
Jennifer Richardson says her estranged mother-in-law, Sandra Richardson, refuses to hand over title on a car she bought from her. Sandra is countersuing, claiming Jennifer stole appliances from her home.
Let's get to the car. When did you tell your daughter-in-law that you wanted $5,000 for the car?
Before I left the home.
So that was in May of 06. Is that what she told you in May of 06? She wanted $5,000 for the car?
My husband and I discussed it, and I told him I don't feel I owe her anything for this car. I have been a personal slave to her, driven her anywhere she's asked me to go.
Well, listen to me.
Broken in
Don't speak. Just because you think that doesn't make it the law. Car is titled in her name. You took her where she had to go. You also used it for yourself when you had to go to, I don't know, bowling, Pilates, hairdresser appointment, whatever. You took the car yourself. So, in exchange for that, you had a car. And what you did was you drove your mother-in-law around. When you weren't driving her around, you were using it yourself. So whether you thought that you were entitled to it or not, that's totally irrelevant. She said she wanted $5,000 for the car. You go back to Florida. When did you have a discussion with her and send her $3,000?
My husband and I discussed it, and I said all I can get is $3,000.
Where did you get the $3,000 from? Look at me. Don't look down there.
My mother obtained a loan.
When?
It would be late May, and I made the deposit in June 20th.
Before you and your husband separated?
Yeah.
And you gave her a check in late May for the $3,000?
Well, she was gone, so we deposited the check into her bank account. And we gave her the mortgage money as well. You'll see it's $4,000.
No. That has nothing to do with it. She already told me. She wanted $5,000. You sent her $3,000. She considered it for other bills. She can't do that. Where's the title to the car?
The original title was destroyed.
And here's what I paid for the car.
Can be destroyed?
Here, ma'am.
Lost in the mail.
What?
Lost. She took my mail for 6 months. I spent $80,000 on that house.
Who's living in it?
It's empty. I can't even sell it.
Just a
in
second.
Florida.
Who's living in it?
Nobody's living in it.
Why isn't he living in it?
He lives here in Michigan with me now.
Oh, well.
But I just lost.
Because if I'm down there, she makes my life miserable.
Shh, listen to me.
$80,000.
I'm not speaking
so.
to you.
Okay.
I'm not speaking to you.
Sorry.
If your mother's out some money, get a job and make sure she's whole. Miss Richardson, you cannot take her money. That money was for the car. That's what it was for. That was before they separated, so that you went back to Michigan, right, without the car.
Right.
And she got the money from her mother. This is her car. It is not your car. Don't get in between your son and his wife if they're in the process of divorcing.
So this $80,000 that she's actually I know she got money. She kept my mail. She run my cell phone up to $1,000.
Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. You could sue her for certain things, but you can't keep this money. And if you spent $80,000, you spent $80,000 on your son, not on your daughter-in-law. You spent $80,000 on your son because, but for your son, listen, if she came to you and you didn't know her from a hole in the wall and she wasn't married to your son, you wouldn't have spent a quarter on her. You spent the money because you wanted your son to be comfortable. And if he was married to this lady, well, she's the beneficiary of that. So the house isn't in her name. The house is in your name.
I'm losing that, too. So.
Well, sell it. Meanwhile, you have to sign the title to the car over to her because the car belongs to her. You accepted the money for it?
It's not paid for.
What do you mean it's not paid for?
$3,000 isn't $5,000.
Listen to me. You said you wanted $5,000 to them before you left. There was conversations that took place between the three of you. There's no question in my mind about that. There is also no question in my mind that you accepted the $3,000 in payment for the car because you took it and you spent it. It wasn't until 3 months later, when they separated, that you said, well, that money was for other things. No, no, no. Doesn't go that way.
So she
doesn't go that way. This is her car. And don't put yourself in the middle of these two people. You spent money. It's unfortunate. The marriage didn't work out. The marriage didn't work out, and it's over. And there were certain things that she took appliances from the house. I'm sure that there were certain things that your son took. What did you take from the house, sir? Stand up next to your mother and just answer my questions. Now that you moved back to Michigan, what did you take with you or sell?
Nothing. Because she emptied the house.
Don't listen to me. She didn't empty the house.
Yeah.
She took the appliances, according to your mother.
Emptied it. My clothes, every personal belonging I had, premarital. She emptied the house. I came back to an empty house. My mom blew $80,000.
Just a second. Just a second. Did you take everything from the house?
Yes.
Everything.
Just a second. Shh. Don't speak. Did you take everything from the house?
Not every single thing, no.
Yes, she did.
Don't speak. What did you take from the house?
I took whatever I would need to have the kids having the same normal life they had before.
How many children do you have?
2.
How old are they?
One to be 12 and one to be 5.
Don't speak. Don't speak. Where were you living? In Michigan?
When I moved out,
Where did you go?
I didn't have a home.
So where did you go?
I went to a friend's home.
Boyfriend.
And it's going to be over. Do you understand? It's going to be over. Okay. What state do you live in now?
Florida.
Which is where you lived as a marital couple?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Why did you move back to Michigan when you have 2 children in Florida?
Because she was trying to get me put in jail. She stole everything. She come into my motel room and took my pool stick, and I'm a professional pool player.
Listen to me.
After she emptied the house, took my dad's wedding band he wore for 43 years that's worth $20. It's 10 karat gold that belongs to my mother. All 9 of my pool sticks, all my clothes, 3 different cell phones that she came to my hotel room to get in my hotel room to take the stuff.
I asked you a question, sir. The question is a simple one. The question is a...
That's why I moved.
The question is a simple one. How do you move clear across country when you have 2 children?
Because there's a lady that's trying to put me in jail and comes to where I am when I try to ignore her to steal things I have. Excuse me.
Let us sign over the car, please. I would run away from him, too.
Really?
Sign it. The car belongs to her. It's your problem how to get it, but the car belongs to her.
Well, she should owe me $1,000 for cell phones that she stole.
Then sue her for the cell phones.
Well, where am I going to do that at? I mean, she steals and took money, took my checks for 6 months and taken my money out of the bank and everything.
Give the title to the car. That's what she wants. Counterclaim is dismissed. Very unfortunate situation. You got yourself in the middle of something. You have 2 grandchildren. You should never do that, madam. When you have 2 grandchildren, listen to me. You have 2 grandchildren.
I don't
you
see
have,
them either.
Excuse me?
I won't see them either. She's the one.
She wouldn't let her
that
see her grandchildren when
Madam,
we lived together.
I'm telling you something. You're not paying attention. You're not paying attention. You have a son who I've only met for a short period of time. He's not wrapped too tight. But you're the grandmother. You're the grandmother. And if you have 2 grandchildren, I don't know if he's your only child or not, or if you have other children. If he's your only child, I sort of get it. So that these are your only 2 grandchildren. I would not have gotten into a situation with her where you end up in court. Just pay attention. Don't look at him with rose-colored glasses. You have to know who your children are. You have to be fair. You have to be dispassionate. She may not be perfect, but you have to know who your children are. You got it?
Yes.
Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think it's a shame when a grown woman can't talk for herself and she has to have her son do all the talking.
The woman took everything from me.
I just wish she'd leave me alone. I wish she'd give me a divorce and leave me alone and leave my mother alone. She calls her 50 times at 3 o'clock in the morning.
He has some issues that I hope for his own sake he works out.
The girl's psycho, bipolar.
I will never speak to the woman again. She's a thief, she's bipolar, she's crook.
I've learned a lot the hard way.
Dr. Eric Schoenberg is suing pet shop owner Robert Meyer for selling him 4 diseased turtles. Eric says 3 of the turtles eventually died.
Order. All rise.
Now, this is case number 288 on the calendar in the matter of Schoenberg versus Meyer. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Is it Dr. Schoenberg?
Yes.
Are you a physician?
Yes.
Dr. Schoenberg, I read in your complaint that you purchased some turtles from the defendant's pet shop.
Correct.
You purchased them in order to create a habitat for them in your home. I don't know how large they were, but within a relatively short period of time, they got sick and died. You believe that Mr. Meyer is responsible for not only the turtles, but also for the substantial veterinary bills that you had in order to try to treat them for an illness that you say they had when you got them from him. Mr. Meyer says he offered you your money back when he found out that there was a problem, but he's certainly not responsible for these astronomical veterinary bills that were racked up as a result of your desire to treat the animals. How large were these turtles?
Between 4 and 5 inches, length of the shell.
And how much did you pay for them?
$17.99 each.
Had you ever had turtles before?
Yes.
What happened to them?
I had them when I was about 10 years old, and I had caught them when I was at camp, and I kept them till I went to college, and then I gave them to the Turtleback Zoo, which was a nearby zoo where I lived in New Jersey.
And they survived?
Never had a problem, no illness, did beautifully.
Did you have had other pets other than turtles?
No.
Really?
Really.
Interesting. Tell me why.
I have a fascination with turtles for a few reasons. One, right now I find them inspiring because it helps me to slow down. They're very graceful in the water, but when they're on land, they're very slow and they just seem very pensive. And I find them very inspiring. They live over 50 years, typically, these turtles. So I think for children, they're nice in that sense that you can really get to know them. And they do have different personalities, but not all the same. They do take on individual personalities.
Explain that to me.
Well, part of the way we name them is the way they behave. Some are more friendly, some are a little more aggressive. They each take on a little different way about it.
You know, I'm an animal lover, so I don't want you to take this as meaning any disrespect. Sure. Are they smart?
Well, I have my veterinarian to attest the fact that they're certainly not dogs or cats, but they do, and certainly...
I mean, there's a certain survival instinct that all animals have, so in that regard, they can survive. They look for water, they look for food, so okay, but...
They've been around a lot more than we have on this earth. Millions of years.
So have roaches.
That's true. Good. You got me there. But I really believe, and I'm sure if you ask most turtle lovers, they'll agree that they do take on different personalities, and they definitely do have a higher thought process, not as high as a dog, but higher than a roach.
I know that I'll probably get lots of mail about this because there are people that love every creature. In any event, when did you purchase the turtles?
May 27th, Memorial Day weekend, 2006.
Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
And how many turtles did you have in your shop?
8 or 9.
When had you gotten them?
About a week and a half prior to that.
From whom?
It's from a distributor. They're animal distributors. This one in particular was a reptile distributor.
When was the first sign that there was something untoward with the turtles?
Every day after work I came home and fed them, so they were doing fine until June 5th. I built a large 8 by 12 foot enclosure for them outside, plenty of room to swim and sunbathe, which sunbathing is very important for them. And on June 5th I went out to feed them and I saw one of them convulsing in the water. So I immediately took that turtle out of the water and I tried to find the other turtles, and at the time I could only find one other. So I took the one that was convulsing plus that turtle, put him in a box, and I tried to call Mr. Meyer, but I could not get a hold of him. But I knew I had to do something quickly, because I know that turtles, if they get sick, it's something is critically wrong.
How do you know that?
Because I know they have a slow metabolism. It takes a while for them to show a problem, and I had them for 7 years, and they never showed any illness, so something like this obviously looked like, I can't mimic the motion, but it was an obvious convulsion.
Okay.
It looked like a seizure almost. And so I scrambled to try to find a veterinarian in my area who specialized in reptiles or hopefully turtles. And fortunately, everybody who I called referred me over to Dr. Burgess's office. That's Dr. Burgess there.
Step up, sir. Dr. Burgess, June 5th, receive a call from Dr. Schoenberg, who ultimately brings over the two turtles to you. What do you find?
Well, he sounded pretty urgently concerned, so we had him come in right away. And both turtles had problems. What struck me, however, was the one that he was concerned about, which was Sammy, looked seriously ill. And this turtle, on physical exam, the thing that I noticed mostly was how extremely weak he was. And these are really feisty little turtles. They're not weak animals. And this kid was pretty much flat out. That's the biggest thing that concerned me right off the top. On closer inspection, I noticed something that the average observer probably wouldn't notice, and that was there were a bunch of discolored areas on the underside of the shell, which is typical of shell rot. The average observer might just think that's a normal color pattern because they have kind of blotchy colors anyway. But I was suspicious that it didn't look right, so I grabbed a small metal probe and was probing these areas, and they were soft. So I knew that there was infection dissolving away the underlying bone and shell. The two things you want to know about shell rot is, number one, it's usually easily treated, but it can, if it goes on long enough, get into the bloodstream, the bacteria can. Then they become septic, and then they'll go down quick. They'll convulse, all their organs are infected, and you can actually lose some of those. The second thing about shell rot is you almost never see it unless the turtles are housed in improper situations. In fact, 95% of all reptile cases we see are poor husbandry related. Crowding, dirty water, too cool of temperatures, not enough ultraviolet light. There's a lot of ways that the turtles can be stressed and their immune system falters. Then they become prone to infections from things that a normal turtle would resist.
And how long does that process generally take?
As advanced as this case was, that takes weeks at least to occur, sometimes months. But to dissolve bone and shell away like that to that extent takes a while. And again, on the surface, they were very unimpressive lesions, easily overlooked. In fact, Eric, who was babying these turtles, didn't notice the lesions either until I pointed them out to him. It just is something you have to kind of know to look for. Doing it for 20 years, I knew to look for it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You got about 10 turtles from the wholesaler?
That's correct.
Now, you're under oath, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
How many of them survived?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Dr. Eric Schoenberg claims pet shop owner Robert Meyer is responsible for selling him 4 diseased turtles. Eric says 3 of his pets suffered an untimely death.
Now, let me ask you this question, Dr. Burgess. If you had seen these turtles, say, a week before, would they have shown similar signs?
Probably, yes. As advanced as these were, there would have been lesions there a week earlier as well.
So they would have been visible to you, for instance, on the 28th of May.
Yes, they should have been.
Now, one of the turtles died when?
The sickest turtle, Sammy, died within 24 hours of us seeing it. I got it on antibiotics, but it just basically went down quick.
And the others?
He had a total of 4, one of which died at home. Of the other 2 that were alive after the first day, the second turtle died about 8 days after we started treating it. And again, this raised alarm bells because we have a high percentage of success rate even with advanced shell rot. And I knew he had them warm enough, he had them in good conditions, they should have been surviving. So we cultured the shell after the second one died and found out that they had 2 species of bacteria there, one of which was particularly difficult to treat. And we ended up having to do double antibiotic therapy for weeks to save the last one, and we actually did manage to save that one. We were using antibiotics by injection in all 4 legs because you can't inject the shell. And after weeks and weeks of double antibiotic injections, this turtle ended up, unfortunately, with severe damage to both front legs. So essentially, her right front leg is virtually useless. Her left front leg is partially paralyzed. So she's in need of special conditions just to pull herself out of the water. He had to build a ramp down in the water that's at a shallow angle because she can't pull herself out of the water to bask. She does have basically permanent damage, even though we healed the shell rot.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So, Dr. Schoenberg, when did you finally contact Mr. Mayer, and what did he say when you contacted him?
June 14th was the day the second one died.
Okay.
So it was that day that I finally made contact with him.
How many calls did you make to him?
It was probably about 5. I have the exact phone records.
Did you speak to anyone?
I spoke with a young woman there, and they said he's not around. I'll have him call you. Never a return call.
When was the first time you got a message from him, Mr. Mayer?
It was before the 14th. It was probably the 12th or the 13th. I was probably busy, and I don't know why I didn't get the phone message before the 12th.
When you got it on the 12th, did you call him right back?
I think I probably waited until the 14th and to get a hold of him.
When you sell an animal at your pet shop, Mr. Mayer, do you instruct people, please take the pet to a vet, have it checked out? You know, you give a money-back guarantee if something is wrong within 24 hours or 48 hours. Is that what you do?
We state that we have a 7-day health guarantee, depending, it's 7 to 14, depending on the type of animal. In this particular case, for reptiles, it's 7 days that we guarantee the animal.
Do you have a piece of paper that says that?
No, I got nothing in writing about that.
I didn't give him anything in writing, but it's stated at the time of purchase.
Who states it?
The person selling the turtle. In that
well,
case,
that's
it was
hearsay,
myself.
sir. What you're supposed to do is...
It was myself that sold the turtle to Mr. Schoenberg.
Did you tell him that there was a 7-day
Yes, I
health
did.
guarantee? You remember that?
Yes, I always say that. Whenever I sell an animal, I was the boss. I employed teenagers, therefore I had to be very consistent with what I did.
But you are not there all the time.
That's correct.
And if you're not there all the time, that means that one of your teenage employees will be selling animals.
That's correct. But by setting precedents and by showing example with myself in the way I do it, and
what you have to do is put it in writing, Mr. Mayer.
I do have something that's filled out when somebody purchases an animal. In this case, it wasn't done, but in most cases it is.
You have to be consistent and done, Mr. Mayer.
That's correct.
So when you purchase an animal, and if you're giving a 7-day guarantee, then what you have to do is say, you have 7 days, take the animal to the vet, because that's where I'm going with my questions to the doctor, because he's already said that this situation would have presented itself had Mr. Schoenberg taken within 7 days the animals to a vet, had them checked out. He would have seen that there was something wrong with them. He would have had an option of returning them to you, and you would have given him his money back. Or if he chose to treat them, then the vet bill's on him. But if you're not told that you have that option of bringing it back, why aren't you responsible? And then you proceed, if this kind of situation, Mr. Mayer, comes from the wholesaler, not from you, but from the wholesaler, then you sue the wholesaler. While we're on that subject, you got about 10 turtles from the wholesaler?
That's correct.
Are you under oath, Mr. Mayer?
Yes.
How many of them survived?
After Mr. Schoenberg got in touch with me, I put a freeze on selling any of the turtles.
What did you do with them?
Well, I just stopped selling them until I...
What did you... Mr. Mayer, let's not mince words, sir.
Sure.
What I want to know is, what did you do with the other 6 turtles?
I had to close my store at the end of June, and so I adopted the rest of the turtles out, but all of them were alive.
All of them were alive when
Yes.
you adopted them out?
Yes.
Dr. Schoenberg, when you called Mr. Mayer and told him that this was a problem with your turtles, did he indicate to you any of the other turtles had a problem?
He didn't make any mention of the other animals. My wife felt like she wanted to adopt them and take care of them because she knew what was going to happen to them, because he indicated that his philosophy on animals, that is, if they become ill, he prefers euthanasia to treatment, even if the disease, as this one was, is completely treatable with antibiotics. This was not a terminal disease.
Mr. Schoenberg stated it incorrectly. What my philosophy on animals was that he stated that I should that euthanasia is the key. If it's deemed that it's more of a business decision, in my case, that if the animal is going to cost $700 or $1,000 to fix, and it's a $17.99 turtle, I can't stay in business and do that. And so I would not want to, but have to euthanize the turtles.
Dr. Schoenberg, Mr. Mayer says that he got these pets about a week and a half before you purchased them. Your expert says that this particular kind of disease, to have advanced to this point, can sometimes take months. Is that right, sir?
Usually weeks, occasionally months, yeah.
Well, Dr. Burgess, let's step up for one more second, sir. I'm going to pin you down.
Okay.
Sometimes it can take months.
Yes.
And sometimes it can take weeks.
Yes.
Could it take 1 week?
Not as advanced as this was.
When you saw the 4th turtle, was it ill?
Yes.
And you could tell right away?
From the shell, yes.
But when you saw the first turtle that was so ill, you couldn't tell from the outside that there was a very severe strain of bacteria that required a different kind of antibiotic.
Not just at a glance, nobody can tell.
Dr. Schoenberg, you went to the pet store and saw the habitat where they were living.
Yes.
And I must assume that as an intelligent and medically trained person, you would not have purchased these turtles were the habitat conditions unclean, unsanitary, looking unhealthy. They looked fine to you.
They looked adequate to me.
No. Let's not play. They looked fine to you, or you would not have purchased them and then invested in the habitat. Come on, let's not play.
Absolutely right.
Okay. Now, I would assume that you could not tell when you took the turtles home, at least from the 27th of May, according to you, until June 5th, that there was anything wrong with these turtles.
Correct.
Why do you ascribe something more to Mr. Meyer?
I have records here from animal control that show that there was a lot going on in his pet store that I didn't know about. And if you would like to see those documents, I'd be happy to share them with you that show the kind of conditions that were there that perhaps I didn't see that day. I just was focused on turtles, and I went right in.
I'm just interested in turtles.
Yes.
I'm not interested in whether he's a good husband, a bad father, a good son, a good nephew, whether he does other things. You saw the turtles.
Yes.
I mean, he didn't take the turtles out at night and put them in the toilet. He left them in the same conditions that you saw them in.
I don't know that.
Which were clean conditions. Well, he doesn't look like a nut. And nuts would have taken them out of a clean condition and put them in a dirty condition. For what purpose? That sounds ridiculous. So let's see what we have, Dr. Schoenberg. We have a medically trained man, buys the turtles, looks as if they're being kept and maintained in a perfectly adequate habitat. You don't see anything wrong with them. No signs of illness. According to you, they were playful and they were eating, appeared perfectly normal. So you are really asking him not to give you back the money for these turtles. You believe he is responsible for the veterinary bills, which were $2,200.
Actually, the veterinary bills were $1,400. The other amount of money is to get special housing for the turtle inside to take care of her since she's handicapped. Otherwise, I would have
Well, that's
her.
another decision that you made, Dr. Schoenberg. You made that decision. Certainly, if you were a Darwinist, you would have said, maybe this little turtle, unfortunately, doesn't want to live for the next 50 years, having to pull herself out of the water because she's paralyzed in one leg and partially paralyzed in another. That's a decision that you made, and I can't fault you for that decision, but you can't visit that on Mr. Meyer. I mean, I'm an animal lover, and I would, quite frankly, love to look at Mr. Meyer and paint him as the devil if he sold animals that he knew were ill. But I guarantee you, Mr. Meyer is not an expert in turtles. Am I correct?
That's correct.
That's a very limited interest base. Dr. Burgess, what was your initial visit for the sick turtle?
It would have been probably 150 at most, I would think. And
150?
That was for two turtles.
And for the two turtles. And then he brought you a third one.
Yeah.
And a fourth one.
Fourth one had died on the premises. I never saw the fourth one.
You saw three. You saved one.
Yes.
Three died. Anything you want to say to me, Mr. Meyer?
I'm an animal lover myself, and I'm sorry for the turtles that have died, but in a business I can't control whether someone goes outside of my vision and treats an animal.
Mr. Mayor, if I had any inkling that you had prior knowledge that these turtles were ill when you sold them, my decision here would have been totally different. But I think that Dr. Schoenberg, with his medical expertise and his expertise in these particular kinds of reptiles, if he couldn't tell that there was anything wrong with them for at least 10 days, then I can't fault you. But you are responsible for the initial visits for the pets. That's $150 each. That's $300. And the cost of them are $54. Yes.
I'd like to say that I got these animal control records. There were 17 complaints. One of them was that he housed different reptiles together. So there's every indication that there was definitely animal neglect on his part, indicating that he was not treating the animals humanely, including reptiles. And now if you house reptiles, turtles with lizards, or mixing them up.
Did you see the turtles housed with lizards?
I didn't, but he could have done it when I wasn't there.
Well, Dr. Schoenberg, doesn't sound right to me. Doesn't sound like it's common sense that you have a habitat for lizards and you have a habitat for turtles. And after everybody leaves the store, you take the time to put them all together in an unsanitary condition. That doesn't make sense, Dr. Schoenberg. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $354. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think really the big picture of this case was not about the money. It was about the principle that an animal is a precious life.
I think Mr. Schoenberg had expectations that were beyond what is reasonable.
This was not a terminal illness. This was an infection that clearly could have been treated with some simple antibiotics.
I'm an animal lover. All of the animals that were in my care were under good care.
These animals were worth saving. Turtles, I know, maybe are not dogs to most people, but to me they're very precious.
That was the reason I got into the business in the first place, was because I did love animals.
It's buyer beware, and perhaps, you should do a background check when you're purchasing animals.
Just keep records of the people who purchase animals and make sure that they have signed statements.
I kind of had trust that if the store was open and left open by the government, that it was considered safe and clean, but I guess not.
Case 21-24, McPherson versus Hall. All parties, please step forward.
Gerald McPherson is suing his ex-girlfriend, Natasha Hall, for money she received during their relationship.
Mr. McPherson,
Yes.
how old are you, sir?
40.
What kind of work do you do?
Home care aid?
Independent, or do you work for a company?
Home care aid agency.
For an agency?
Yes.
How long have you been working for them?
About a year now, but I've been doing home care for about 3 years.
Prior to working for them the past year, and you're still working for them, is that right? Was there a period of time when you were unemployed?
Not more than maybe 3 weeks, but since I know Ms. Hall...
No, I don't want to know about Ms. Hall.
No, I'm telling you my employments, that since I've lived in her residence, I've always worked. I've worked at the zoo, Census Bureau.
Don't try to think ahead of me.
Okay.
There was a period of time in 2020, according to you, that you became homeless and were living in a shelter.
Yeah,
And that was in what month in 2020?
In June. So if I can explain the situation. I was living in a house that a slumlord wasn't doing the repairs. So I ended up forcing his hand, him selling the property, and the new landlord and my...
Could you look at me when you're talking?
I'm sorry. The new landlord and her and my other ex, they kept the property. I moved out. I went to a shelter because I didn't want nothing to do with her or the...
You're talking about her?
No, ma'am.
Well, then don't keep pointing to her. I'm asking you...
I'm just pointing in general. I'm not pointing at her.
You actually pointed
I'm sorry.
to her. When you were in the shelter, were you employed?
Yes, for the Census Bureau,
Okay.
doing the census. I was actually out in the field knocking on doors. I was an enumerator.
So you were not working in home health care, you were a census taker.
At that time, yes.
And did you have a child living with you?
Yes, well, not in the shelter, no. I could not have my daughter in the shelter.
How old is your daughter?
10.
And where is her mother?
She's deceased.
Where was your daughter living when you were in the shelter?
With my mother.
Is she living with you now?
She's been with me since June.
In a new apartment?
Yes, I moved in August 1st.
She goes to school from your apartment?
Yes.
Okay. In 2020, you became acquainted with Miss Hall, and there came a time shortly thereafter, uncross your arms, and there came a point shortly thereafter when you moved into her home.
In August, yes.
Of 2020. And you remained in her home until what month and year?
August of 2022.
And in what month and year did you regain custody of your daughter?
June of 2022.
So there was a period of 2 months when you and your daughter lived in Miss Hall's home.
You could say that, but...
Well, I'm saying that because I just asked you a question about timeline.
No, because me and Miss Hall was going through our dispute about this money, my daughter was staying with my grandma. I only brought my daughter there on certain occasions.
When I say you regained custody of your daughter, was that a court order?
Yes, I have it right here.
Just a second. Was the child removed by court order from your custody?
It was removed because the house...
Don't tell me because.
Yes,
it was yes.
Yes.
I have lots of things to do today.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Child was removed from your custody.
Because I didn't have nowhere to live at the time.
Was the child removed from your custody before you moved into the shelter?
She was removed because I was in the shelter.
Did you take her to the shelter?
No, I was not allowed to because there's no men.
So at that time,
female
did she go and live with your mother?
Of course.
Was that by court order?
No, it was
brought her to your mother?
Yes.
May I see the court order that involves custody, please?
Here you go.
I'm not getting an answer.
This is the court order, and this is these two forms. Now, that court order is the current form.
Okay, so the child was placed with the Commissioner of Social Services in Pennsylvania. And the child was placed in kinship foster care, which is a program that I am very familiar with the child's paternal grandmothers. So in June of this year, the child was returned to your custody. At some point in August of this year is when you and the defendants separated and you left the house. This is your claim. Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. What kind of gambling thing? I don't want to go back to the year Gimel, sir. All I want you to do is tell me how much rent you were paying her.
To be honest, I had to...
I don't know. I want you to be dishonest with me.
Gerald McPherson claims his ex-girlfriend, Natasha Hall, wrongfully spent the money he gave her for rent.
Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. What kind of gambling thing? I want you to look at me when you talk, not at the papers.
No, I was going to...
In what kind of gambling thing did you win money?
I betted on 25 games.
What 25 games?
NBA, college, hockey.
Okay, and you bet where?
On FanDuel. It's an app called FanDuel.
Okay, and you won?
Yes.
I don't understand the whole thing. I don't want to learn the whole thing. I don't care about the whole thing. I just want you to tell me how much you won.
Before taxes or after?
Both.
Okay, $36,742, and after taxes, $26,889.
On what date?
So I won the bet on the 28th. It came into my account.
28th of what?
January.
Of what year?
This year.
And you had been living with Miss Hall for 2 years?
Prior, yes.
Okay, and you were working according to you all of that time?
Yes.
Okay, good. Were you paying any rent to Miss Hall?
I have receipts.
Yes, I want to see those. How much rent were you paying?
So when I met Miss Hall...
I don't want to go back to the year Gimel, sir. All I want you to do is tell me how much rent you were paying her.
To be honest, I had to pay
I don't know.
half
I want you to
her
be
rent.
dishonest with me.
Half her rent is like $425, and she had me pay half the gas and half the electric and half the cable.
Her rent was $425?
No, it's $850. I had to split it. We're paying half and half.
Miss Hall?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I do customer service.
And who else lives in the apartment with you?
My children.
How old are they?
14 and 13.
How large is the apartment?
It's a 2-bedroom.
And the total rent is $850?
Yes, ma'am.
There's no subsidy involved?
No subsidy at all.
Okay. And you have a lease?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you charge, if anything, Mr. McPherson as rent?
$425.
Well, that doesn't quite sound fair, does it? Did she make a figure with you of $425?
I paid more than that. I paid $425. That's half of the rent. I paid half of the electric and half of the internet bill.
There are 4 people in the house.
Yes.
Right? Why is he paying for...
only
Why was he paying for half the rent?
Oh, my children don't work, and his child didn't work either.
His child wasn't with you?
The child came with us in June, but she had visitations on weekends.
I don't care if she has visitations. Your children live with you.
Yes.
They don't have to work. They're your children. They're not his responsibility. Okay, I just want to know where everybody's head is at. There came a point, Miss Hall, when Mr. McPherson gave you $6,000 in cash.
No, not in cash.
Check.
No. Both of them was wired. One was directly wired into our Bank of America account.
What? Just a second. When?
The first transaction was on January 31st. The second transaction...
January 31st of?
This year. And the second transaction was the next day, February 1st. $12,000 total.
Do you acknowledge, Miss Hall, receiving $12,000 in your account from Mr. McPherson, or do I have to look at his records?
I do not acknowledge. He gave me $6,000 and $4,500.
$6,000 and $4,500, Mr. McPherson. Does that sound right?
No, it's not right, and I'm going to show you.
Let me see your bank record.
All right. Hey,
and
sir.
Let us assume that it's $6,000 and $4,500 that he gave you in this year, 2022.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Let us assume for the moment that you're correct, because you're suing for $6,000.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, because the first initial $6,000 was 8 months' rent. That I'm not.
Let us assume that you are correct, that he gave you $6,000 and $4,500. I'm taking you at face value in January and February of 2022.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the money for?
That he gave me?
Yes. The 2 different amounts of money.
Yes.
There's a $6,000 and a $4,500.
$4,500 was for me to pay my car note off. And
hey, just a second.
Go ahead.
Why would he pay your car note off?
He said he wanted to.
Oh, no. That's ridiculous. Miss Hall, let me just check.
Can I say something?
No.
He even wrote that on there for your car note.
No, you said in January he won a bet and cashed it out. A few days later, he gave me money via Cash App to catch up on his rent and as a thank you for helping him out. I don't see anything here about gift for a car note in your answer.
So he gave me the money for the car note, and as far as the Cash App money, he gave me money lots of times. So yes,
no, I'm talking about the $6,000, madam.
Yes.
Let us assume he gave you $4,500 to pay off your car note. That's what you said.
Correct.
What's the $6,000 for?
The $6,000 was for us to move.
For who to move?
Me and him.
Show me.
The $6,000?
Yeah, show me that there's proof. He says he gave you the money according to his complaint to hold for him.
Yes.
Shh. Just a second. Yeah, February 3rd, he gave you $6,000. This just says he gave it to you.
Yes.
And?
And he told me to hold it so we can move.
Well, you didn't move.
No,
you didn't. Shh. He told you to hold it for him so that you could all move.
No.
So who could move?
So me and him and our children could move.
Well, that's what I just said.
I apologize.
So that we can move.
Correct.
But you didn't move together.
Correct.
So you have to give him his money back. That's simple. Just a second. That's simple. If you say he gave you the money so that the two of you could move and that event never took place, but he in fact moved out, you owe him $6,000.
But then he agreed.
Just a second. That's an easy. Okay. Do I have to deal with anything else? Money for lost wages, rent, utilities? Forget it. He paid all of that with the $4,500 when he paid off your car note. Come on, let's get it together. Lost wages. What are the lost wages for?
But then I had to take off from work because of the PFA, and I had to take off from work to go file out the court and things like that. But in the midst of him saying the $6,000, he didn't pay rent. He didn't pay all of his rent.
He paid off your car note. You owe him $6,000. Your counterclaim's dismissed. We're finished. Thank you very much.
Okay.
This court is adjourned.
Well, I don't agree with the judge's decision. I don't think I owe him the money.
That's what women do.
Because he gave me a gift and he didn't pay rent.
I also spent $2,000 on her in gifts.
What's done is done.
I'm taking a break from women for quite some time now.
So I'm glad that the plaintiff's daughter didn't have to go into the larger foster care system and was able to stay with plaintiff's mother. But I was curious that if this was a temporary slip up and he wasn't going to be permanently without housing, why wouldn't he go with his daughter to his mother's house? I was surprised you didn't ask him that question.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. That's a curious question.
To me, it just seemed like it might have been a better situation to crash at your mom's house with your daughter
with
for
your
a while,
daughter.
But
I'm not sure whether I have that whole story because they continued the child in care for a period of time, at least for almost 2 years, because he didn't have custody of her while he was living with the defendant.
well, one easy part of the case was that he was owed his $6,000 back.
That's
all we had to deal with.
Yeah, that was easy. Once she got her hands on that $6,000 and he was no longer in the picture, it was hard for her to get.
Mary Favre and Jason Stockton are suing Mary's brother, Michael Manry, for medical bills and personal belongings.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2117, Favre Stockton versus Manry.
Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Manry, this is your sister.
Correct.
And that is her
Fiance.
And you have a son who is 19.
Yes, Your Honor.
How many other children do you have?
I have 3 altogether.
How old?
One is almost 30, the other one is 18, and then I got the 19-year-old, which one here.
Okay. And your son, who is now 19, is the subject of this case. Who had custody of the children?
I got custody of Dakota now.
When did you get custody of the children?
Only when he was 18 years old.
Do you have those papers, sir?
Yes, I do.
May I see them, please? Okay, so this grants you, sir, legal and physical custody of Dakota Manry until further order of the court. So what this case is about now, and I assume from what I've read, that Dakota has certain special needs.
Yes, ma'am.
And because of his special needs, he is unemployed. Did he finish any sort of a high school?
He graduated.
He graduated from
Yes.
high school?
Yes.
Did he go to a special school?
He went to a regular school, but he was in special education.
And when he graduated, did he graduate when he was living with you?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what your case is about. At some point, according to you, you have a niece, and your niece wanted to have Dakota come and stay with her for a couple of days. You were at the time, according to your answer, sort of in between residences. You were evicted from one place and going someplace else?
I was in the process of moving. I got my niece to go with me to, ask her if she'll bring me to go get Dakota by my cousin's house. And she said, sure.
Okay. Dakota went to live for a few days, at least, at your niece's house.
No, not live there. No, not live there. No, ma'am.
Well, he was there overnight.
He was over there overnight.
How many nights was he there overnight?
I think about maybe a week. I was supposed to be 3 days.
So he was there.
Yeah.
During that time, you, who are his aunt,
yes, ma'am,
went to your niece's house and you saw Dakota there.
Yes, ma'am.
And according to you, became concerned because, according to you, it looked like he hadn't showered in a week.
He was in dirty clothes. He just looked awful.
So you decided to take him to live with you?
I asked him, I said, do you want him to the house to stay, a little while, where he can eat and all that, because he looked like he hadn't ate either.
Okay. Well, this is what your case is about. You decided to take him, didn't discuss it with his father. During the time he was with you, he had some expenses. You want his father to be responsible for those expenses, and you want his father to return certain of his personal property. That's what the case is about.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First, let me deal with all things legal. I have an order here dated January 21st, 2021, which grants physical and legal custody of Dakota to his father. Do you have any subsequent order granting you custody or guardianship, is my question.
I have power of attorney.
That is not the same thing. Can I see what they have?
Power of attorney when I didn't give her permission. I got custody.
Okay, this was signed by Dakota, so he's giving you legal power to act on his behalf.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Dakota, by signing this power of attorney, he's saying that I am a whole person, and I give you the right to make medical decisions for me if he can't do them. It's a general power of attorney in case he becomes unable to make decisions on his own. This is an order of custody. You have power of attorney. Power of attorney suggests to me that Dakota wants to emancipate himself from his father, wants someone else to act on his behalf. It becomes a complex question because if Dakota has special needs and if he can't act on his own, and a court has already ruled that his father should have custody of him, either you have a power of attorney and he's emancipated, in which case his father's not responsible for any of his medical bills, or this is invalid because he can't sign a power of attorney because he doesn't have the mental capacity to understand all of the implications of this power of attorney. Now, your nephew was in special classes.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know what the nature of his disabilities are?
Fetal alcohol syndrome.
Is that his diagnosis, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
He had, according to you, after you took him from your niece's house, and you do acknowledge you took him without his father's permission.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We was not talking, me and him.
It doesn't make any sense if you were talking or not.
I didn't have his number, and I asked Dakota, I said, text your daddy to let him know you're coming with me. Dakota said, and he showed me where he texted Michael. Now, I don't know if it was on a different Facebook page.
No, it's your responsibility to notify his guardian, who has custody, that you have taken physical custody of him.
Right.
And when did you take physical custody of him? Give me the month, day, and year.
May 20th of this year, 2022.
Now, while you had physical custody of Dakota, you indicate that he had surgery.
Yes, ma'am.
And part of what you want Mr. Manry to pay for is the ambulance bill. What kind of surgery did he have?
Brain surgery, and he had a feeding tube put in him.
Just a second. What caused you to take him to a hospital or to a doctor?
Your Honor, when he arrived at the house on the 20th,
He had very bad slurred speech, and his balance was completely off. He was falling over. Your Honor, it was like he was a drunken man.
Let me go back to you for a second, sir. While Dakota was with you in the months just prior to May, did you notice Dakota having difficulty in his gait?
Not like he was explaining to me, I was going overboard.
No, did you?
But his balance was off, okay.
Did you inquire? Did you take him to the doctor?
I did. I took him, actually, right after I got him.
So you saw that balance was off a while ago?
When I noticed that he had headaches, all right, because his dream, thanks to me, was wrestling. He loves wrestling. I put him in wrestling. I talked to the promoters, and I did that for him. But when I seen every time he got body slammed, you know, and this and that, I had to take him out of it. I got concerned because he was complaining of headaches. So I made him an appointment, and I waited for a referral. Well, when the referral came in, my kid was kidnapped.
So he never actually saw the second doctor?
No.
Okay. Do you have any records?
Well, I couldn't get the records. I tried to get them.
Once something went wrong, my kid died doing surgery. I couldn't even be there for him and all that. Anything could have happened.
Just a second. I'm following you, sir. Now, when did you take him for this brain surgery?
I took him the first week of June. I took him to do a CAT scan. And as soon as she did that, we went to the hospital. We didn't leave the hospital. They put him in the ER. And from the ER, we went to Florence, Alabama. And then the surgeons there couldn't do it because it was so big.
What was so big?
Your Honor, they found a mass the size of a grapefruit. The first week, Dakota came to stay with us after we noticed the balance issues and the slurred speech. She took him to doctor who diagnosed him with being severely malnutritioned. Your Honor, when he came to my house, his
liar.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Your Honor, sorry. My apologies.
His leg was no bigger round than my wrist.
I got it. Mr. Manry, everything has to be put in perspective. You had a lot of things going on. And if Mr. Stockton's reporting to me is accurate, even though there might be some bad feeling of the way your sister and her fiance took physical custody of Dakota, you really have to be in a position to say thank you to them, because you, for whatever reason, not for lack of trying, nobody is suggesting for lack of trying, you did try to take him to a doctor, you did see that there were things wrong with him. I understand that it's not always that easy to get the right specialist to get involved in this kind of surgery, but you really have to take a breath. Yeah. And I assume it's accurate, because I cannot assume that anybody would perform brain surgery on a child that was not necessary. That
okay, why she couldn't call me?
She should. Just a second. Just a second. Your sister should have called you and told you that Dakota was going into the hospital to have surgery. That would have been the nice thing to do. Did you do that?
She did.
No, she did not.
She called
I called
their
my mom.
mother.
Well, calling your mother.
His phone was disconnected. I did not have the new number until he called me or texted me with a bunch of drama. That's when I got his number.
You took my kid from me. You kidnapped my son no matter what.
Mr. Manry, what I want you to do is just take a breath for a moment.
Yes, ma'am. Dakota kept texting me, you know, he kept on like video chatting me and everything. And then all of a sudden, like a light switch, he changed and everything. The boy's mind's being poisoned by Mary and
No, so far, Mr. Manry, you're not losing this case, so I don't know what you're agitated about.
Mary Favre and Jason Stockton claim Mary's brother, Michael Manry, owes for medical bills and personal belongings. Michael is countersuing, saying they illegally took his son from his custody.
Mr. Manry, Dakota was only at your niece's house for a short while. You already told me that when he came to you, his gait was off. So right before he went to stay for a couple of days at your niece's house, was his speech slurring?
No, he always had a speech impairment because of the disability, but his speech was not slurred at all. That is a lie. Him having the skinny arms and all, that's all
okay,
lie.
I'm not talking about skinny arms. I'm talking about his slurred speech. What I was saying to you, Mr. Manry, is that I don't think there are any bad guys here. I don't think that you're a bad guy. And I don't think that your sister and her fiance meant any harm when they saw a situation that they thought was dangerous. And as it turned out, they were able to get him seriously needed medical care. That doesn't mean it was all done right. But what you're asking for is to be compensated by the defendant for the cost of the ambulance bill that you incurred. Now, this power of attorney was signed by Dakota, if in fact he had capacity to sign this power of attorney. It was done 2 weeks after his first surgery. So up until that time, even if I could construe this as a valid document, his father had legal and physical custody of Dakota. And I assume that's because he had special needs and is unable to live on his own. Is your son able to live on his own?
No, he never will.
Okay, so that's what I assume as a result of this order. If you want this order changed, you have to go back to the court in Mississippi. You have to be declared his guardian.
Your Honor, we did not want to be declared his guardian. The reason the POA came about to start with, during the entire surgical...
Your Honor, can I say something?
The father was aware of it. So was the mother. The mother was actually present at most all of the appointments.
It doesn't matter. The mother doesn't have custody, legal or physical.
We were under the impression, and were told she did, that he only had a temporary custody. So she showed up to say she had to sign all the documents. She was going to do this. She was going to do this. She was going to do this.
Did she sign the documents?
She signed some. Then under social services directions, Mary was informed she should go after a power of attorney. It was discussed with both Dakota and her.
It may be. That's not a lawyer. That's bad advice. Now, just before I get to the issue of clothing, property, whatever he has that's at your house, and where it should go from here, your first stop is to go back to the court in Mississippi that issued this order.
Yes, ma'am.
And say to them, I need Dakota's law guardian. He'll be appointed a guardian for himself, independent of you, and they will interview him and they will do certain evaluations of him and determine where it is that he wants to live. But you have to do that in court. You can't do that ad hoc because you relied on his mother's statements that she had the authority to sign off on these things. She did not until this is changed. And if you want to change it, you are free to go in and try, and then Dakota will be interviewed and seen by a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and he'll have a medical evaluation and determine whether or not he is a person who actually requires guardianship. And if he requires guardianship, you can petition for that, and you'll have a trial. This is not that trial.
Yes, ma'am.
Did Dakota have Medicare?
Medicaid.
He had Medicaid.
That would pay for the ambulance ride.
Yeah, I just want to know if he had Medicaid. He did.
I did give them the Medicaid number, and they keep sending me a bill, and I called them, and they said because it's a different state, it's not covered.
It doesn't matter. Tell them to send their bills to his father. Tell them that you do not have custody or guardianship of this child. His father has custody, guardianship, and this bill is not yours.
The bill is going to Dakota. They're going after Dakota for it. His Medicaid didn't pay for it.
They may be going after Dakota for it. They will be very smart seeking payment from people who can pay them, which is his parents. Right now, you're not legally responsible to pay for his ambulance bill. The only person who might be legally responsible for it is his father, and that will be up to the ambulance company to do. This is not your responsibility at all. So discount the ambulance bill. Next to Dakota's things, you want property that he has in his father's house. So let me go back to you with regard to my statement to you 4 minutes ago. You have to have this custody order modified. You have to go back to the same court that issued a legal and physical custody order of Dakota to his father and say, we would like guardianship of him. He wants to stay with us. He's 19 years old. He will be interviewed. He'll be analyzed. And if at the end of the day you get guardianship of Dakota, then his father may or may not turn over whatever property he has. Dakota's never worked. So whatever property he has was either purchased or given to him by either his mother or his father or other relatives.
A lot of it was his mom that paid for the stuff.
I don't know that.
No, the bottom line is why all this boils down to, Your Honor.
So far, Mr. Manry, you're not losing this case, so I don't know what you're agitated about. You're not losing. You're not losing. What I'm telling the plaintiffs is that if they think that they can provide a more pleasant, stable environment for Dakota, they have the right to petition for guardianship of him. Now, it would be in Dakota's best interest long-term if he were to have contact with both his mother and his father. Contact. I'm not saying live with. Mother, father, and his aunt, and his soon-to-be uncle, as soon as you make up your mind and give her a ring. It's in his best interest. He needs the largest community that he can. I agree. Okay, we're going to stop throwing barbs because that only serves to inflame already raw emotions. I want you to say, I am angry that I wasn't consulted in this massive surgery that your son had, but I'm grateful that it was done, because if it wasn't done, in all probability, he wouldn't be here. You just have to think about that.
Mary Favre and Jason Stockton have accused Mary's brother, Michael Manry, of owing for an ambulance bill. Michael claims Mary and Jason took his son without his permission.
What I'm telling you is a very simple procedural thing where you have to go. You can't sue him for the return of Dakota's things unless you have guardianship of Dakota.
Understood.
Because he already is the subject of a recent order of custody from a court. That's what you have to have. You can take that bill from the ambulance service, put it in an envelope, we'll get you the address, and that's where that goes. That's his father, who is his legal parent under this order. So send that bill to them so you don't have to worry about that bill. As far as his property is concerned, that has to go along with an order of custody or guardianship, and that's something that you should do. But, Mr. Manry, I am not making a decision with regard to his custody or not. What I'm asking you is, until a court reviews whatever orders they're going to make with regard to custody and guardianship, first, I know you may be angry, but they probably saved his life by getting him to the doctor that they did. And if they removed a massive tumor from his brain, you should say, thank you for doing that, because it was a month after he was living with you. Someone else took your son and saved his life. And for that, at least, you have to be grateful. You can be angry. You can be angry that you didn't get it done before. You can be angry that somebody else did it without consulting you. You can be angry at all of those things. But at the same time, you have to feel grateful that it was done.
There wasn't no reason they kidnapped my son.
Okay. Mr. Manry, you keep going back to the same song.
I was worried about
keep going back to the same song. And what I'm saying to you is, their next stop, if Dakota wants to live with them, and he's right now over 19 years old, is to the court who issued the order to modify that order. All I'm saying to you is, I want you to say, I am angry that I wasn't consulted or didn't participate in this massive surgery that your son had. But I'm grateful that it was done, because if it wasn't done, in all probability, he wouldn't be here. You just have to think about that. What I'm telling you is, you have to love your child more than you, at this moment, dislike your sister and her fiancé, because they were able to take control of a situation and get your child fixed. So is Dakota, just for my own, is Dakota angry with his father?
He's angry that his father won't return any of his wrestling. He is correct. He is a huge wrestling fanatic.
Okay. What particularly does he want? He wants his wrestling?
He wants his wrestling belts. They have replica belts that were made. He wanted his PlayStation 4 and the wrestling game.
PlayStation 4, I'm not interested in that. He wants his wrestling belts.
Yes, ma'am.
Yana, can I show you something right quick on my phone? Dakota kept texting me, you know, he kept on like video chatting me and everything. And then all of a sudden, like a light switch, it changed and everything. The boy's mind's being poisoned by Mary and Jason.
What I'm telling you, Mr. Manry, that's for another court and another day. When Dakota has a lawyer, you may have a lawyer to modify this custody order. Right now, he would like his wrestling belts.
Oh, I want my son to come home.
Okay, then I strongly urge you to go to the court, file a petition against them for custodial interference, or you go to court and file an application for guardianship of Dakota, which is a much more positive thing to do, and let a court that has the social work services, the psychiatric services, evaluate Dakota and figure out in whose best interests are we supposed to place faith. And I think if he is a thinking young man, and you told me that he is because he wants these things that are important to him, he should be able to have a say with whom he lives. Now, you have my ruling. Your next stop, folks, is to modify the order of the court in Mississippi that gave his father custody, physical and legal custody of him. You have to petition for guardianship. That's your next step. So, in that regard, your case is dismissed. Send the ambulance bill to his father.
I got a countersuit.
We're done.
Your Honor.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it, sir.
Okay. I did everything I can for my kids, and
My brother, he said nothing but lies.
when somebody takes your kid without your permission,
But, you know, that's him. I mean, that's what he does.
you don't know where they're at, and you're going crazy because you don't know where your kid's at, that's kidnapping.
I should get a thank you out of it, but he's not going to do that.
I want my son to come home to his daddy because I love him very much. That's my son.
It's about him. It's not about her. It's not about her and her brother. It's not about me and her brother.
My son, I love him. I'll do anything in the world for him.
It's about Dakota.
So you didn't listen to the defendant's counterclaim back there for emotional distress for, I believe it was $3,500. I would have given that to him. I don't think anyone was acting maliciously in this case. Like you said to the father, he should be grateful that his son is alive and his sister took action when he might have been stumbling a little bit. But that's what that cause of action is for, when someone takes an action that was legally incorrect. And here, the plaintiffs had no legal right to take him to get that surgery. I agree that he should have had it and it all came from a good place. However, when you take an action that causes somebody else such severe emotional distress, and I would consider taking someone else's child in for the riskiest surgery that probably exists, qualifies as causing some severe emotional distress. So I probably would have awarded him that if I was ruling.
Well, so let me give you the reason that I didn't bother to hear it. I think the aunt and her fiancé had nothing but pure motives in taking this 19-year-old who they say appeared to be malnourished and they say was diagnosed as being malnourished, which is possible, and it's possible that it was all related to this brain tumor that he clearly had that was impairing his stability, and he was with his father for a year while this tumor was growing. I don't think that they had malicious intent.
Neither do I.
And I think that but for their actions, this 19-year-old boy probably would be dead. If they took out the tumor that was the size of a grapefruit, I would say 6 months later or 8 months later, there's a strong probability that would affect the optic nerve, affect the carotid artery, and gone. So although I could understand his annoyance, from the time they went to live with him until his surgery was a month. And I actually don't believe that this father didn't know where he was for a month, because they evidently have a living mother who they're both in touch with. He was moving around, phone disconnected. At the hospital, the mother showed up. She said, I can sign the documents. Well, you know, you're involved in major surgery for a child. Your focus is not on your brother, who did not take care of business for a year. So I'm going to leave that up to a family court judge to determine who should have custody, and I probably guarantee you that custody will remain with his aunt, because that's what Dakota wants. Father may be angry, but that's what's going to happen. I have no doubt that the father loves him. He did not take good care of him for the year.
Sure.
And so I wasn't going to reward that by giving him any money against these people who had nothing but the child's best interests, when for a year he really didn't take care of business with his son. And that's why I didn't hear his case for emotional distress.
Understood. Thank you. I'll try and help you as much as I can.
Thanks.
Case 2105, Davey versus Miller. All parties, please step forward.
Melissa Davey is suing her ex-boyfriend, Joseph Miller, for an unpaid loan.
Mr. Miller, I think I'm going to start with you today, just because I have to kind of shake it up for myself. Otherwise, I get stale. You and Miss Davey were sort of in a relationship for a brief period of time.
Yes, Judge.
Never lived together.
No.
There came a time when you wanted a new car. Not a new car, but a better car.
Yes.
You wanted a better car because you wanted to use that car as a driver for Uber.
Yes.
And you needed a down payment.
Yes.
And according to what I've read from Miss Davy, and what you seem to acknowledge in your answer, Miss Davy loaned you $1,200.
That is correct.
Things didn't work out, which happens. You paid her back $300.
Yes.
Did not pay her back $900.
Correct.
So that would make it easy, except that you have a defense.
Correct.
And I'm going to let you tell me and the rest of the world what that defense is and show the world what a prince of a guy you are.
I hope I can do that.
You're no longer together.
Correct.
You owe her $900.
No.
Well, you just acknowledged that you paid her $3 and you owed $9 because she gave you $12.
I owed $9.
I said at that point you owed $9. You're no longer together.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I misheard you then.
Okay. Well, I sympathize with that because I do a lot of mishearing myself. But what I said to you was, at the time you broke up, you owed her $900.
That is correct.
Now you're going to pick it up from there and tell me and the rest of the world what your defense is. Because I read it. I just want to hear it from you.
All right. At the time of our breakup, you are correct. I did owe Miss Davies $900 and had told her that I would continue to pay on the debt that was owed.
Okay, and what was the month and year of your breakup?
End of April, maybe?
End of May.
End of May?
May.
Okay, end of May, broke up, owing $900. And you said?
I tried to be cordial and have conversations periodically with Miss Davies, and they did not go well. And then Miss Davies had to put her...
No. You tried to have conversations with her with a view towards what?
Just to reassure her that I was going to pay her back the rest of the money.
Okay, so she would call you and say, where's my money?
No, I would send her a text and kind of chat, and then I would give her a quick call and say hello, and we would have just a little chat every now and then, just to remind her that, hey, I will pay you back the money.
That sounds so off, Mr. Miller. People don't usually call an ex-girlfriend who they owe $900 to and say, hey, by the way, I know I'm going to pay you back the money. I just need a little time. That usually comes from the other side contacting them and saying, I would like my money.
Typically, you are correct that most people, if you owe the money, you don't contact the person that is owed the money. I didn't want her to do that. I didn't want to have her come to me and be like, hey, where is my money?
Okay, so you break up the end of May. Did you give her any money in June?
I gave her one in April and one in July of $154.
So at the time that you broke up, you had only given her $150.
Correct.
Later on, she kept bothering you. You were reassuring her. And in July, you gave her another $150.
Correct.
Keep going. I still get $900. Where does it say she's forgiven your debt?
The very top one, I believe it says you won't have to pay for a thing.
No.
And that was...
No. Miller, this doesn't say she's forgiven your debt.
Melissa Davy claims her ex-boyfriend, Joseph Miller, owes for an unpaid loan.
I still get $900.
In July, she had to put her dog down. And
so that was in mid-July?
I believe, yeah, about the...
July 11th.
So you'd already given her the other $150.
Yeah, and...
So she called you and said...
She sent me a message that said, hey, I'm going to do this. So I called, and she's like, hey, I'd really, really like you there.
I can't... The last couple of words you just sort of muttered, sir. I don't know why you sort of muttered them. She called you and said...
I would really love to have you there. I don't want to do this alone. I would really appreciate if you would come.
Okay. And did you think of that as a reasonable request?
Yes and no.
Okay. Did you agree to go?
After we talked...
No. I want you to tell me what she said and what you said.
She said that she would do anything.
No. I really want you to go. And this is on the phone. That's what you told me. This was on the phone.
Yes.
So you didn't say that she could see on the phone. She said, I'd really like you to go. And you said what?
I think that could be worked out.
Okay. I think that could be worked out.
Yes.
And then what's the next thing that was said, and by whom?
I believe she said that I would do anything to have you there. I don't want to do this alone.
Well, you told me that before. After she said, I really don't want to do this alone. I would really like you to be there with me.
And I said...
And you said, that could be... What did he say?
He said, okay, I think that could be worked out.
I think that could be worked out. Okay, so that's what you said. And then who said something after that?
She said that she would do
She already said she would do anything?
Yeah, she would even relieve my debt.
She said that, or did you?
She said that.
She said it.
Yes.
Okay, because that's what his answer was here. Okay. And so then you said to her, fine, I'll go with you. And you went with her, and you spent 3-4 hours there while the unfortunate business of an end of life for a beloved pet takes place. And prince that you are, you relieved yourself of the $900 that you owed her.
Yes.
Just for my own information, how long did you and Miss Davy date or have a relationship? A month, 2 months, 3 months?
4 months.
4 months. Did you get close?
Tried.
Both of you or just she?
Both.
So you tried to make it a warm, close, intimate relationship.
As best we could, yes.
And when you needed some help, she offered to help you.
Correct.
What do you think that I think of a person who understands the word close, warm, affectionate? What do you think that I think of a person who says, okay, I'll go with you through this very, very sad time? Someone who I've been close and intimate with for months, so I'm going to spend a couple of hours in the afternoon with you at this very tough time, but it's going to cost you $900, which is in effect exactly what you said, but it's going to cost you $900. Let us assume that I believe you, a reasonable ex-boyfriend who wanted to be, as you said, I didn't want her to have to come and chase me. I wanted to assure her. So a reasonable ex-boyfriend would say, sure, I'll keep you company.
In theory, yes. There were circumstances when Miss Davies and I broke up that were not the best for either of us. And it wasn't a cordial breakup. It was very rocky. At the time when she called and asked me to come, I didn't want to speak to her at all.
I would have respected that, sir. You say, this was very rocky, it was nasty, we don't really like each other anymore, or I don't like you anymore. I don't know how she feels about you, and it's really not something that I want to do. I don't want to be involved with that. I could actually understand that if it was acrimonious, as you say. What I can't understand is somebody saying, I'll go with you, but it's going to cost you $900. That's what I don't understand.
Well, she brought that up. She was the one that stated that she would relieve the debt. And I was like, okay, whatever. So
okay, Miss Davy, now it's up to you. Now I have been grilling Mr. Miller. So I have only one question to you. Do you remember the conversation when you discussed with him going with you to the vet?
Yes, I have it in text.
I'd like to see it.
Judge,
Speak not.
Okay.
Unless you have the text messages.
This is the date I called to make the vet appointment.
Sarah, can you tell me what dates these are?
Sure. If you go out, these were all Saturday, July 9th, and if you pull over, you can see the time.
Well, I'm looking at all these, and I don't see anything about her saying to you, if you come with me, I'll forgive your debt. So if you have one of those, I'll take a look at it.
The very top one. That was after a phone conversation with Miss Davis?
Just a second. Where does it say she's forgiven your debt?
The very top one, I believe it says you won't have to pay for a thing.
No.
And that was...
No. Miller, you know what I'm talking about, sir. She tells you to keep your gas receipts. So if you're coming to help her, it's not going to cost you anything out of pocket. This doesn't say she's forgiven your debt. You have family, you have siblings, parents, anything?
Yes.
Yeah, well, they're going to be disappointed in you, Mr. Miller, because it's not princely activity. It was clear to me from reading the plaintiff's notes to you that at least it appeared that she was struggling more with the end of your relationship than you were. That's just what it appears. And I'm a pretty good judge of that. And you sound like an intelligent man, soulless, but yet intelligent. So if you have any emotion whatsoever, you can look at this and say, this is a lady who's sort of struggling. Let me see how I can take advantage of that. I owe her $900. And I'm going to figure out that if I do this for her and it's really important, I shouldn't have to pay her back the $900. Unprincely, Mr. Miller. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $900. We're finished here.
This court is adjourned.
People just sometimes don't agree.
It was very clear cut.
At the time, I was very upset with her.
I think he tried his best to just keep things cordial.
Move on and move forward.
Another wonderful relationship that's hopefully will not end up in court.
It intrigues me how men can make the jump from keep your gas receipts to you don't have to pay me your $900 debt. We read the messages and we were unclear as to what debt forgiveness in the messages. We didn't see it. He handed us the exact same text that we had read on her phone. He said, yeah, that's what that means.
I think he knew what it meant, because if you checked out his smirk when he handed me just that one piece of paper, he knew that when he says, keep your gas receipts, I don't want it to cost you anything, to come with her to the vet, having nothing to do with the $900 debt. Oh, it's just amazing to me that after 27 years of doing this here, I have to do a breakdown of about 90% of the cases involve women who are giving money to boyfriends and then get left holding the bag, as opposed to the 10% of men who get caught up with situations where women are prepared to take advantage of them. But most of the time, it's women. I don't know, I think it all has to do with self-esteem, Sarah, and I think that the only way to ensure that...
3, 2, 1, go! Hasnan! No! Daniel! No! Salu! Come on, Salu! No! Muzammel! No! Cool boy! Yes! Mr. Greedy! Yes! Biggie! Come on, Biggie! Yes! Biggie Vinas! Judy! No! Hasnan! No! Daniel! No! Salu! No! Muzammel! No! Cool boy! No! Yes! Mr. Greedy, last one? Yes! Finish! Greedy double!